Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video. Seeing the horrors committed from its inaction at the original vampire's creation and its inability to interfere in the world on large scale, Aura itself decided to do what little it could do. Aura couldn't really do much directly, but it did what it could by degrading the mind of the original vampire. Degrading his mind? So he is currently not himself? Asked Damon. You could say that it was his punishment. He is currently just a mindless beast waiting to be unleashed. Well, I guess he'll make his move when he feels like it, says Damon. Well, I've told you everything you wanted to know, so hurry up and kill me already. Ah, I nearly forgot about you. Thanks for all the info, by the way. Swoosh. Bam. Damon didn't hesitate. As he formed a fist and it connected to his hostage's head, blood and brain matter splattered all over the room as the force behind Damon's strike blasted his head open. No matter how things develop, it seems like I'll end up meeting him soon anyway. After all, Rose will become another original vampire soon anyway. Turning around, Damon headed back upstairs, blood still dripping from his fist. As he steps foot upstairs, Damon is immediately questioned. What are we gonna do? Asked Rosalie. Why didn't you get the location of his hideout? Asked Kane. Let's go kill him now, said Max. Guys, calm down. We aren't going to do anything right now. First of all, we are outnumbered severely. With such a disparity between numbers, even though I would be fine, some of you will surely die. We will wait for the baby to be born and Rose to become an original vampire, and when that happens, he will come to us and lose some of his army. So it will be much easier to kill him, says Damon. For now, let's enjoy the little peace we have. Bella, you need to go home and talk to your father. Even if you are ashamed to face him, the man deserves to know his daughter is all right. As for the rest of you, just do what you want, but make sure you train your gifts since there will be an opportunity to use them on a larger scale soon. 3 days later, Damon, his pack, and Alice and Jasper were currently making their way through the forest wearing what looked to be baseball gear. Remind me again why we're doing this, said Crystal. It's about bonding as a pack, says Damon. Oh, sure it is. It has nothing to do with the fact that you lost a bet with Alice a while ago, says Matt. Whatever, fine. So I lost a bet with Alice. At least I can play baseball. What are you gonna do? Grow opposable thumbs to hold the bat? Asks Damon in a sarcastic manner. Ha 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 ha, unable to hold back her laugh. Alice laughs as she tries to cover her mouth, but ultimately fails to muffle her laughter. The others, already accustomed to the banter between the two, just shakes their head. Ha, let's make a bet then. Whoever wins can order the loser to do anything they want for the day, says Max. All right, we will be the captains, and whosever team wins will be able to lord it over the other's head and order the loser to do what they want or a day, says Damon. Deal. Max agrees immediately. I pick Kane, says Damon, as quickly as possible. Ouch, Damon says as he feels Rosalie pinch him on his side. I would pick you first, love. But you can't play, says Damon. Damn it, I pick Ocean, says Max. Why aren't I anyone's first pick? Asked Alice with a pout. I picked Joey, says Damon. I picked Bella, says Max. You're as transparent as always. You're going to try to use her to throw him off his game, aren't you? Asked Damon. I have no such intention, says Max, but the smile on his face says otherwise. Fine. I pick Chris, says Damon. A few minutes later, the pack had reached an open area. Rosalie was the umpire as she sat in a fold-out chair, watching as the two teams stood opposite each other. Damon, Kane, Joey, Chris, and Angela were all on one team, while the other team consisted of Max, Bella, Ocean, Crystal, Alice, and Jasper. Damon's team had one less member since Rosalie couldn't play, and they all agreed on this as it really wasn't a disadvantage for him. Remember, you have to keep your strength at only a little higher than a human. That goes for the rest of you as well, says Max as he looks at Damon. Yeah, just call aside, says Damon as he flips a coin. Heads, Max shouts as Damon catches back the coin and reveals that is tails. Seems like my team gets to bat first, says Damon. The teams disperse as everyone gets into position. The first person who steps up to bat was Kane. Max's team spread out as he took the furthest position back. On the mound, the pitcher was Ocean. Looking at Kane standing in the batter's box and Jasper playing catcher, he decides to strike Kane out. Taking a big step, Ocean threw the ball as it shot forward, straight down the middle. Kane, on the other hand, stood looking as the ball passed him, finding its place in Jasper's mitt. Bam! Strike one, announces Rosalie. Jasper throws back the ball to Ocean. Ha 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 ha, seems like you couldn't see my pitch, says Ocean. Kane didn't respond. Bam. Strike two. Let's get this over with, says Ocean as he throws his third pitch. Kane, after letting the first two balls go past him, suddenly moves for the third pitch as his bat connects perfectly with the ball. Bam! The ball was sent fly as Ocean stood silent as he watched the ball fly over his head. Max wasted no time running after the ball as he jumped into the air, catching it in his mouth. 1 out, Kane walked off the field, standing next to the other members of his team as Chris went up to bat next. As Chris stood bat in hand, he stared down at Ocean as he tightens the grip on the bat. Good job, Kane, says Damon as he turns to Kane. It wasn't much. I was sure a child was pitching with how slow they were. It's just bad luck. Max managed to catch it, says Kane. You're right, Ocean's pitch did look slow from over here. Maybe they should put Max to pitch instead. Maybe he could roll it on the ground faster. Ha 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 ha. Damon's whole team started laughing. Max and Ocean could clearly hear the joking and condescending tone of their conversation, and it made the both of them angry. Ocean, pitch with full power, shouted Max. Didn't you remind Damon not to use our full power before the match? Asked Ocean. It doesn't matter, since they say your pitching is slow, says Damon. While Damon and his pack were busy enjoying themselves playing baseball, Edward had finally reached the city in which the Volturi was based. He was wearing a long brown coat that covered his whole body, keeping him from being exposed to the sun. The coat was filthy, covered in mud and other substances, making him look haggard, but his eyes shined with the flames of revenge. As he walked the streets, the people avoided him like the plague. As he limped forward, he kept mumbling incoherently, making people believe him to be crazy. But Edward didn't care. He made his way slowly to the base of the Volturi and entered. As he advanced into the base, he was eventually stopped by a random member of the Volturi. State your purpose. My name is Edward Cullen. I've come to report some information to the leaders of the Volturi, says Edward. Edward knew that he would be able to meet the leader easily as they had wanted him to join them long ago, and now he was here alone, they would welcome him. The random guard spoke. Wait here, saying that he turned and entered the door behind him. It wasn't long after that he returned and welcomed Edward into the room. The leaders of the Volturi have agreed to meet you. Edward slowly made his way into the room as he was met with 3 men. They had skin so white that it was almost translucent, comparable to an onion's skin, dark red eyes, though cloudy or milky. They stood together, all wearing black and red coats. Edward, it's a pleasure to see you, but it seems you are not in the best of states. Aro spoke first. That's why I'm here. I came to report the appearance of a werewolf, says Edward. A werewolf? That shouldn't be possible. We hunted them to extinction long ago. Is he the one that took your arm? Asked Aro. Yes. So where's the rest of your coven? Are they dead? Asked Aro. No, they are still alive. Oh, do they know about the supposed werewolf? Asked Aro.
They do, answered Edward.
So why are they not here with you reporting this matter? We have known about the werewolf for some time, and they have refused to report it. I took an opportunity and left to come and report this matter to you. Oh, Edward, you have just admitted to going against our rules with your coven. You should know what this means, right? Yes, I know what it means. But they have broken the rules knowing the circumstances, answered Edward. There is something I don't understand. With only one werewolf, why couldn't your coven kill it? Asked Aro. He was very powerful. He took my arm, and we couldn't do anything to stop him, while the rest of the coven forgave him after the fact, says Edward. Hearing this, Ori walked forward, nearing Edward. We can't just believe everything you said, but it's a good thing we have a way to find out if what you said is true. It was clear what Aro wanted to do. His ability was telepathy. He was able to read minds much deeper than Edward could, but it required physical contact. Aro grabbed Edward's shoulder as he began to read his mind. But he didn't manage to get anything as Edward's aura was still contaminated with Damon's. As soon as Aro's tried to enter Edward's body to read his mind, it was attacked by Damon's. Aru was pushed out forcefully. As he suffered some backlash, Aru coughed up blood, and everyone present was surprised. Damon and his pack continued to play their games. The residents of Forks were startled by the loud noises, mistaking them for the sounds of thunder, as the sky was clouded. In the forest near the field where Damon and his pack were playing, Carlisle and what remained of his coven were approaching. They had returned to find out what really happened to Bella, but when they went to the home of Damon and found it empty, the sounds of the game invaded their ears and they followed it to the forest. It seems like we have some company, says Damon. Just great, those idiots are back in town. I wonder what they want, says Max. They are most likely here to find out what happened to Bella, says Rosalie. Guess he told them the bond broke, says Damon. Most likely they think she is dead. The game came to a stop as they all waited for the Cullens to appear on the field. Damon wasn't really happy with the sudden intrusion, but the same could not be said about Max. As his team was currently losing, he saw this as a saving grace. It seems like the bet is off. Their sudden arrival will disrupt the flow of the game. It's best we call it off. If our bodies cool down, then we start playing again. We risk injury, says Max seriously, while still staring at the spot the Cullens will appear from. Hearing Max, everyone present except Damon just pretended not to hear him, while Damon couldn't hold himself back. Sometimes I really wonder if I could have found a smarter wolf to transform what injury everyone here has high-level regeneration, says Damon. Hearing this, Max still wasn't finished. So, because they have high regeneration, you put them in a game to get injured. I expected more from you. Max spoke dramatically, and with righteousness. If the sky wasn't currently filled with dark clouds, there would be a light shining down to illuminate his figure. Max stood his head held high as a tear ran down his furry face, when suddenly a beam of light shone down on him from the sky, as the sky started to clear up. Seeing this, everyone present was shocked. If they didn't know the personality of Max, knew what he was saying was for his own benefit, they would believe him immediately. Damon, though, went from shock to total anger in less time than it took for those present to blink, and when they realized the change in his expression, it was too late. "Oh, wipe that look off your face, you cunt!" Damon shouted as he sped forward, leaving no one time to react. As Max saw Damon's fist approaching his face, it was far too late for him to dodge. Bam! Max was flung back as he landed heavily on the ground. Of course, he wasn't injured as Damon didn't hit him with the intention of injuring him. But Max stayed on the ground, unmoving. At this point, the others just watched from the side with no intention of interfering. I knew you were wicked, but to hit your best friend that hard, you really are a... Max didn't finish as his face contorted in pain. Cough! 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 Max somehow managed to cough up a single drop of blood, adding to his dramatic act. Looking at Max's act, Damon could help. But be surprised. All that fake coughing for one drop of blood you couldn't make to Hollywood with that low level of acting, said Damon. Aren't you gonna get up? Or so I have to force you to, asked Damon. But Max refused to answer. Fine, you want to continue playing? I'll play with you, you dumb dog, thought Damon as he clenched his fist. If Max had known what Damon just called him, he would surely jump up from the ground, shedding his act, and started cursing Damon for calling him a dog. I hope you aren't angry when I'm done with you, Damon said, and the change in the tone of his voice was immediately heard by Max as he wasted no time and rolled out the way. Boom. Damon's fist collided with the spot Max was in before, as the ground collapsed under the force of his punch. Max looked back at the damage caused by the attack, and instead of fear, he felt anger. You, what are you trying to do? If that attack had hit me, I would be injured, shouted Max. My bad, my hand slipped, causing me to use too much force, said Damon. Your hand slipped? Do you know how dumb you sound right now? Asked Max as he jumped from the ground and jumped toward Damon. I think your little play has gone on long enough, don't you both think so as well? Asked Rosalie in her normal voice. But Damon and Max immediately stopped what they were doing. Of course, we were finished anyway, they said in unison. Carlisle and his group had arrived at the field and were greeted by the pack lined up, waiting for them. The Cullens looked at the group, and all of their eyes fell on one person, and that was Bella. From the way she carried herself to the smell she was giving off, they could tell she wasn't human anymore, and since she was with Damon, they could guess what she was now. Damon, it's good to see you again, said Carlisle as he walked forward for a handshake. I've told you, Carlisle, your fake greetings just annoy me, responds Damon. So where's your son? I don't know. He felt the bond between him and Bella break, and he disappeared. We thought she was dead, says Carlisle. So instead of going to look for your son, you came to me, Carlisle. I'm touched, but I am fine. His disappearance causes me no pain, says Damon in a joking manner. Why don't we just skip the small talk and get to why I'm here, says Carlisle. Please, go ahead. Why did you turn Bella into a werewolf? And did you do it knowing it would break their bond? Carlisle. Oh, why do you want to know when you can't do anything to change it? Asked Damon. Did he force you, Bella? Carlisle turned and looked at Bella while asking her this question. Ha 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 ha. Everyone present laughed at the question, while Carlisle and the other Cullens stood still looking at them seriously. Guys, stop laughing. I think they are serious, says Damon. So what if they are serious? We could kill them as easily as stepping on an ant. As a matter of fact, I think we should kill them. Their attitude since they arrived hasn't been very respectful. I agree. It seems that they came with the intention of starting trouble. Damon, let's play a hunting game. They are the prey. Whoever kills the most wins, says Max. That sounds fun, but I think we should hear what they have to say first. And maybe Bella would want to talk to them first, says Damon. As the Cullens hear their conversation, the previous expression on their faces changes to one of complete shock and fear. They were completely aware of the difference in strength between them and Damon, and even though they didn't know how strong the others were, they were completely outnumbered. Damon, we were just asking, we didn't mean to offend you. So, could you ask your pack to calm down? Asked Carlisle. Hearing this, Damon turned around and faced Carlisle again.
No can do, you see. When you came here talking like that, you already pissed me off. The only reason I haven't taken action yet is that Bella would likely want to talk to you, and I still need you alive to deliver my child, says Damon.
I know that very well, Damon, and it's exactly for that reason you won't kill me or my family, says Carlisle. Hearing this, the rest of the pack took on a very cold expression. As they looked at the Cullens, their killing intent clear to feel, Damon stood there, stunned what Carlisle had completely shacked him. As Damon finally got back to his senses, he felt the killing intent coming from his pack and was surprised. Even Jasper and Alice had angry expressions on their faces, while the Cullens that came with Carlisle were clearly surprised by what he said. Carlisle, it seems the disappearance of your son has made you crazy. If you dare talk to me like that, even going as far as to threaten my unborn child, says Damon. Carlisle stood rooted to his spot. It seems he had realized what he said. As Carlisle was about to say something, Rosalie's cold voice entered everyone's ears. Carlisle, it seems you overestimate your worth, even if you are the best choice currently to deliver our child. I would kill myself if you threaten our child again. It is very easy to turn a doctor and have them deliver the baby for us after they join the pack, says Rosalie as she steps forward. So I would advise you to become reacquainted with the value you hold. You are not untouchable. You are easily replaceable, says Rosalie. Clearly, she was very upset with the things Carlisle had said as she was now standing next to Damon. I think we should just kill him now. We can't control him completely. It's better to have someone who can't hurt the baby deliver it, says Max. We agree also. The other members added their thoughts. Hearing them, Damon had started thinking about it. Maybe they are right. I don't really trust Carlisle. But turning a doctor just to deliver our daughter seems really selfish, taking them out of their normal life forceful. It isn't something I want to do, but if this feeling doesn't disappear, it might be the best thing to do, thinks Damon. We will talk about this later, says Damon, responding to his pack. Damon, that was a mistake. I'm just a bit on edge because of Edward leaving. Don't take what was said to heart, says Carlisle. It's far too late for that, Carlisle. Words have already been spoken. It can't be taken back, says Damon. Bella, you go and talk to Carlisle. We will be leaving, says Damon. After saying that, Damon and his pack left, leaving Bella and Joey with the Cullens. It's all right, you can go. They won't do anything, says Bella, looking at Joey.
I won't be far. If they do anything, I'll kill them,
says Joey as he turned and disappeared. As Damon and the others returned home, everyone still wasn't very happy. Their day out was ruined by the arrival of the Cullens. Alright guys, you better get ready soon. There will be a fight with the Volturi. If I'm not wrong, that idiot Edward should have gone to the Volturi, says Damon. A fight? That's great. I can't wait to kill some vampires, says Max. Edward went to the Volturi? Asked Alice. Well, I think so, and they will surely come after us, but they aren't a big deal. We will just kill them, then kill the original vampire, then we can live in peace, says Damon. What about Carlisle and the others, asked Jasper. Well, the Volturi should come for them too. If they die or live is up to them, since their son sold them out himself, says Damon. Things are getting very entertaining, says Kane. Back with Bella and the Cullens, they were standing watching each other intently. So did he forcefully turn you, Bella? Asked Carlisle. Bella stood there looking at Carlisle. She had some complicated feelings about this man, but she still answered him. Damon didn't forcefully turn me. He saved my life when he didn't need to. Showed me the truth, says Bella. Faced with this answer from Bella, Carlisle stood there. He didn't know what to say. He didn't completely believe what Bella said, but he was unable to get any other answer. Sigh, what about that boy who was with you just now? Who is he? Asked Carlisle. He's a part of Damon's pack, answered Bella with no change in her facial expression. I'm sure that isn't all. Your bond with Edward has been broken, and he thinks you're dead. Don't you think you should at least let him know you aren't? Asked Carlisle. It doesn't matter if I let him know that I'm alive or not. As a matter of fact, things are better this way, says Bella. Better this way? Bella? I'm disappointed. When did you become so cold and uncaring? Asked Carlisle. Uncaring. If that's how you see it, then it's fine. I don't care. I have people who know the real me, so your opinions don't really matter, says Bella. Hearing this, Carlisle was really shocked. This was not the response he expected at all. It seems Bella really had changed. Bella, Edward is in a lot of pain right now after the bond was broken. If he knew you were alive, it would lessen his pain. Bella, I'm asking you, please. Edward is in so much pain, he might do something foolish, like killing himself, says Carlisle in a pleading voice. Hearing this, there was a brief crack in Bella's cold expression, but it recovered quickly.
Mr. Cullen, I'm alive. I have a new mate. My feeling for Edward has dissipated, leaving nothing behind. If he knew this, wouldn't it just ensure he did something foolish like killing himself? At least once he doesn't know I have someone else, it would reduce the chances of him doing so, says Bella.
Hearing this, Carlisle and the others were very surprised. Bella actually had someone else already. Wasn't it less than a month ago that she was deeply in love with Edward? How could her feeling change this quickly? As a matter of fact, if you guys were really worried about Edward, shouldn't you be looking for Edward, making sure he doesn't do anything foolish, like killing himself? I think you guys are happy that he's gone. Did you even try to look for him? Asked Bella. What Bella said was very ruthless, but it hit the nail right on its head. Even if they didn't say anything, the Cullens blamed Edward for their current predicament, their family broken, and there was no way to fix this. But even after being called out, they wouldn't come right out and say this. Bella saying this just made them angry. Boom! A loud sound echoed in the surrounding area as a sudden pressure of wind forces those present to take a step back. And soon after, another loud sound echoed. Boom! Now Bella and the Cullens were covered by a dust cloud as they upped their guard, even though they were completely terrified. Whoosh! Once again, the wind picked up and blew away the dust, granting back everyone present their sight. But someone was missing, and someone who wasn't there before was there now. Carlisle was gone, and in his spot stood Joey, with a clearly angry expression on his face. Why are you still here? I told you I would be fine, says Bella, looking at the angry Joey. Doesn't look like it. If I wasn't around, it looks like you would have been taken advantage of, with how angry he was getting there. No telling what he would have done. It's best to let him cool off, says Joey. Sigh. The Cullens, who were on guard, turned to look in the direction Joey was looking in and saw a trail of destroyed trees. Without any hesitation, they immediately ran in that direction looking for Carlisle. Let's go. It's clear your conversation isn't finished yet, says Joey, as he and Bella run in that direction also. As the Cullen arrive at the end of the trail, they found Carlisle embedded in a huge stone, cracks all over his body as he was barely able to move. Soon after, Joey and Bella also arrived. That's just a warning. It's best you be careful and learn to control that temper you have, says Joey. Carlisle couldn't respond, but he was very upset at the situation. Even with his great self-control, he still got angry at Bella's words. It cut deep, exposing the truth that he desperately didn't want to face. As Joey was talking, Asmi had already made her way to her husband's side. She was clearly worried about him. Cough. Cough! Maybe you were right, Bella. Maybe we were indeed happy he left, and just couldn't face this fact, says Carlisle. Don't talk, you aren't in a good condition, says his. Mr. Cullen, I appreciate how nice you had been to me before, but from this moment, let's have nothing to do with each other. I think that would be for the best, says Bella. I respect your wish. This will be goodbye, says Carlisle. Have a good life, says Bella. After that, she and Joey left the area and headed back to the house, leaving the Cullens alone. What are we gonna do now? Asked Esma. All in favor of searching for Edward, raise your hand, says Carlisle. No one moved. It seems their true thoughts were finally reaching the surface. All in favor of staying in Fork and living peaceful and leaving Edward on his own? Asked Carlisle. What Carlisle didn't know was it mattered not what choice they made. They would meet Edward again, and when they did, it would be an all-out fight for their survival, where they would have to turn to the most unlikely person to survive. After all, Edward had long since decided to rat them out to the Volturi and had already followed through with his thoughts. Damn it, 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 damn it. All dead. How could they? 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 The same voice shouted.
The rage and sadness have become stronger as a woman could be seen behind a tree with black liquid streaming down her face, and her exposed hands were filled with cracks. This was definitely not a human woman, but a vampire. This Tanya, the leader of the Denali Coven, consisting of Kate, Eleazar, Carmen, Garrett, who are at this moment already dead. The attack was swift and ruthless, leaving them no chance to retaliate, as even their supposed ally in Edward was a part of the group that destroyed her family. The only reason she is alive right now is that she wasn't there when they attacked and only returned after, but the murderers hadn't left yet, exposing their identity to her. Tanya was overcome with anger and sadness, but she was somehow still able to see the situation clearly. The moment they were alerted of her presence, she ran, and ran with all her might, but they followed her. Through some kind of blessing, Tanya was able to lose the vampires following her enough to have a moment to let her sadness overwhelm her. The reason didn't matter. She was sure her family did nothing to deserve this. Then her thoughts went to Edward. He was standing looking at the dead body on the ground, no emotion on his face, and from the conversation she had heard before she ran, Edward wasn't being forced. He had betrayed the other Cullens. This shocked her, but it also gave her a reason to run. Carlisle was very close to her, and she didn't want them to die, and she knew for sure that is what would happen if they got to Forks before her. Having decided she had been sad enough for now, Tanya sped off once again in the direction of Forks. Back in Forks, the Cullens had gone back to living in their house, spending their time however they wanted. Things weren't what they used to be. The family wasn't as happy as they were before. Bella had exposed them for what they really felt. Now they couldn't deny it and could only live with it. But Edward could only blame himself for this. If anything, the Cullens had backed him up longer than they needed, and because of that, their family was in pieces. Maybe the members of the family haven't reached the point of hating him to the bone, but the chances of them ever accepting him again were very low. Over the past few days that the Cullens had returned, Esma had made many attempts at talking to both Alice and Jasper, who had joined Damon's pack. Through many failed attempts at bringing them back, Esme eventually just had to accept the fact her beautiful family was never coming back together. Damon, on the other hand, was currently relaxing by the pool with his family. Laughter could be heard everywhere, and everyone was getting along. Even Bella was in the pool swimming with Joey. As Damon looked on, he couldn't help but smile. He liked to see the members of his family getting along and enjoying themselves. He only hoped this could last forever. Master, she got away. The kneeling vampire said to the other vampire standing dressed in robes next to Edward. Jane, it seems our plans to launch a surprise attack have failed, says Edward. It changes nothing. Surprise attack or not, they will die. After all, you said Alice isn't with them anymore, right? Asked Jane. Yes, she isn't with them anymore, answered Edward. That's good. Remember your life is on the line as well. If anything isn't as you say, then your head will be separated from your body, says Jane with killing intent, obvious as could be. The Volturi didn't trust Edward even a bit, but the things he had brought to their attention, coupled with the fact they'd been waiting for a reason to destroy the Cullens, made the leader decide to go ahead with this plan and destroy them. The Volturi had always wanted to have both Edward and Bella to join them at the Volturi as they had taken an interest in their powers, but for the sake of keeping the image that they put forward as being the neutral judge that presides over all vampires to keep order, they couldn't destroy the Cullens without a reason. Because the same way the Volturi was waiting for an opportunity to destroy the Cullens, there were many covens that are also looking for the correct reason and cause to unite the vampire covens and destroy the Volturi. This was one of, if not the main reasons the Volturi wanted Alice to join them, as she would be able to warn them as these decisions were made by seeing the future. And now it seems like their dream was about to come true, as they planned to get Alice by will or force this time around. Currently, to ensure their plan worked, there were two teams that were dispatched. The first team was going after the Cullens, while the second heads straight to Fork to deal with Damon and his pack. Each team had one of the Volturi's main weapons in being the twins, whose power was to an illusion of pain on a target, stripping them of their ability to fight back, making them easy to kill. And the team going after Damon's pack, the notable members would be Aero and Alec. They were accompanied by 8 vampires as their numbers increased as they created newborns along the way, while keeping them in control through Alec's ability and Aero's to read their minds and find out their weak point, such as family members. The team that had been tasked with killing the Cullens included Jane and Felix, along 5 more vampires. They had not increased their numbers by using newborns for the simple fact that they knew it wasn't needed to kill the Cullens, and Jane's ability couldn't work on more than one target at a time, making her unable to control the newborns the way her brother could. These two teams, when looking at their number and abilities would make any vampire coven afraid and unable to fight back, but in the face of either Damon or any member of his pack, this lineup was nothing more than a bad warm-up for the main course. Alright, gather up. We will set off for Fort. Now the Cullens are already there and would be informed of our intentions, but it doesn't matter. They have broken the rules and they will pay the price, says Felix. Hearing this, the remaining vampires gathered and they set off at their highest speed. In Forks, currently in Damon's house, the members of his pack were gathered around a table, eating breakfast. Even Jasper and Alice were present, even though they couldn't eat. Max was also in his seat, stuffing his face with anything that was in reach. The happy atmosphere was enticing, but then suddenly, bam, the glass in Alice's hand that contained blood dropped as her body stiffened, and everyone who knew what this meant turned and focused on Alice. It took a while, but Alice finally came through and the vision was done. But the look on her face made the rest of the room tense. She looked downright horrified as her body began to tremble. "Alice, what's wrong? What did you see?" asked Jasper as he wrapped his arms around her. "They're coming and they have an army full of newborns," says Alice. "You mean the Volturi?" asked Jasper. "Yes," Alice answered. "That's it?" asked Damon, but the tone of voice said it all. He was disappointed. "Yes," answered Alice. "It's just a group of stupid vampires, not even ones turned by the original. What's there to be afraid of?" Damon stated. "Yeah, it's just some vampires. I was waiting to kill some vampires since they are delivering themselves to us. We will gladly use them as some warm-up," says Kane. Alice and Jasper just watched as the others just nodded to his statement, agreeing with what he said. Clearly they were the only ones that were worried. After this, everyone went back to eating and the atmosphere returned to normal. The only difference was the increased excitement and lingering bloodlust. A day had passed, and the Cullens were living the same as before. Sadness overwhelmed them as they just lived day by day. Unable to do anything they found joy in anymore, but little did they know their sadness would reach new depths even deeper than they ever thought possible. As the day passed, the Cullens stayed at home. Another day, but as the clock struck 12 today, all members in the house were alarmed as they caught the scent of a vampire. But soon they realized the scent was familiar as they gathered at the door of the house to welcome their guest. But as they opened the door, the sight they saw shocked them. Their friend, some might even say a family member, was in a horrible state. It was clear she had been attacked and barely survived. And now they were worried about her as she fainted. While Damon and his pack weren't worried about the approaching army heading to deal with them, the same couldn't be said for the Cullens, who had just found out what had happened to their friend. Flashback. Tanya had fainted after arriving at the Cullen house, and being friends or family, as they would say, with Tanya, they brought her inside and made sure she was all right. They were clearly worried about her. As they waited, they guessed what could have happened to bring Tanya to them in this condition, and the status of her pack. Tanya's coven wouldn't let this happen to her, and the fact she had arrived here by herself without them had already given them the answer to their question. They knew Tanya wouldn't abandon her family and run by herself, so it could mean that her family was already dead, and she had escaped to either ask for their help in getting her revenge or come to warn them. To everyone present watching over Tanya, they already knew what option was the most likely. "It seems the Volturi has attacked her coven. The question is why," says Carlisle. "Why have you jumped straight to the Volturi?" asked Esme. "It's simple. Other than Damon, there is no one that can deal with them and reduce Tanya to this state, and the fact that she came to find us. I'm guessing the people responsible for this will be coming for us as well," says Carlisle. "Even if it's the Volturi, that would need a reason to go after the two of our covens, and as far as I know, they don't have one," says Emmett. "You're wrong. So far we have done 3 things that the Volturi could use to make a move against us. The first is the fact we currently have a pact with the shapeshifters when we were supposed to report them as soon as we found out about them and didn't. The second is simple Bella. We exposed the existence of vampires to humans. And lastly is the fact that Damon, a werewolf, has been in contact with us and already has a pack of other werewolves, and we have yet to report this matter to the Volturi. Any of these reasons would give the Volturi enough reason to act against us, so," says Carlisle. "I agree, but they have no way of knowing that we have done any of this. Alice and Jasper are with Damon, and Tanya and her coven wouldn't sell us out, so it has to be something else," says Emmett. "What about Damon?" asked Eddie Dick. "What about Damon?" "Could he have done something to alert the Volturi about the things we have done?" "He could have, but what reason does he have to do that? The moment we become something that he can't stand to look at anymore, he could kill us easily. There is no reason for him to go about getting rid of us in such a roundabout manner," says Carlisle. "It seems we are still missing the most reasonable answer to our questions," says Emmett, gaining everyone's attention. Getting everyone's attention, Emmett spoke. We are still missing one member of this family besides Rosalie, Alice, and Jasper, and the last time we saw said member, he was completely consumed by hate and anger, says Emmett. There wasn't a need to call names. Everyone present knew who he was talking about. In fact, they had all thought it, but it seemed Emmett had the most courage to say it. I know he had said it. It consumed the thoughts of the others. Even though they had talked about abandoning Edward, they would have never thought that Edward would have already sold them out in the search for revenge. The room was silent, and the mood became even more depressing. They now had to accept the fact that the person they once called family might now be working to kill them, completely disregarding their previous relationship. Even though they want to leave Edward to his own devices, they would never go out of their way to hurt him, and they expected the same from him, but it seems that their thoughts were foolish. The truth of the matter is that Carlisle and the others should have already noticed this. Edward, who was consumed by revenge, had no such thing as family or attachments. After all, there was no need for such things. A man who has given his entire self to the pursuit of his revenge sees nothing but that. Anything is possible, and they are capable of anything, from committing mass murder to killing loved ones like they were strangers. This is the path Edward has chosen and must continue to walk until either he or Damon is dead. Edward may have already known the outcome of his attempt at revenge, but it didn't matter. The logic had been buried deep under the hatred and anger, stopping him from using it to make a logical decision and give up on his futile attempt. While Carlisle and the Cullens were trying to accept the reality in front of them, back at the house of Damon and Rosalie, the pack members were once again gathered together to discuss something. I have no idea why this is even an issue. I am the second in command, so it's only natural that I become the baby's guard, says Max. But you're a dog. What if she catches something from you? Asks Kane. You idiot, I'm not a dog, and I'm very clean, and let's not forget that I'm stronger than all of you, says Max. Yes, the matter being discussed was who was to guard the baby once he or she was born. As time went on, the connection and loyalty they felt towards the unborn baby was growing as the baby grew, so they all wanted to make sure the baby was well protected once he or she was born. But with an original vampire as a mother, and the strongest werewolf as your father, and a family of very powerful werewolves who were loyal to him or her, this baby would be well protected no matter what. And that's when the baby's eventual awesome strength wasn't taken into consideration. So if they really thought things through, the baby wouldn't need a bodyguard, as Damon would be sure to clean up all the treats before she was born. But this didn't seem to matter to the group as they continued to argue. Cullens. At the Cullens, they were still shaken at the thought of Edward betraying them, but Tanya was now waking, so their attention gathered on her. After all, she would have the answers to their questions. As they watched the now twitching eyelids of Tanya, the Cullens' mood managed to brighten a bit. At least their friend was fine. So the thoughts of Edward were pushed to the back of their minds for now as they focused on Tanya. TOV. Everything has to be a dream. Please let it be a dream. They are all dead, killed, right before my eyes, and all I could do was run and hope that someday I would be able to get revenge for them. Those bastards at the Volturi have gone too far killing everyone. Precious to me, but they aren't the only ones. The Cullens have brought all their troubles to my doorstep, and left it for my coven to bear the consequences. How could I allow this to be? Their deaths weren't peaceful, and neither would the deaths of those who killed them when they suffer from my revenge. And as for Edward, that bastard will suffer more than any before. That scum actually helped kill them, and felt nothing. If I don't kill them all, I will never forgive myself. Chaotic thoughts swirl through Tanya's mind as she begins to regain consciousness. Tanya herself looked much better than she did before, and the cracks on her skin had healed and she had returned to her previous beauty, but as she opened her eyes, there was a look of confusion as she looked at the unknown roof. But as quick as the look of confusion appeared, it was replaced with one of sadness and rage as she saw Carlisle. She immediately realized everything she hoped was a dream was in fact real. Her whole family was gone, and the one who was to blame was Edward. "Tanya, how are you feeling?" asked Carlisle as he saw Tanya's eyes open. Hearing this question, Tanya wanted to rip Carlisle's head off his body. What did he mean, how she was feeling? What a stupid question. But since he wanted to know, she would tell him, "How do I feel? What kind of foolish question is that? But since you asked, I'll tell you how I feel like anyone would feel if their entire family was killed before their eyes, and all they could do was escape and do nothing at that time to get revenge. I feel complete and utterly useless. Not only was I only able, you run, but I came to ask the people whose family member is responsible for the death of mine, for help. So right now, I feel like ripping each and every one of your heads from your body and letting you join my dead family. Say Tanya, each and every one of her world, laced with hatred and malice. But no matter how upset she was, Tanya had excellent self-control and wouldn't act on her thoughts for now. After all, she knew she needed the Cullens if she wanted any chance at revenge. While Tanya had finished speaking and was holding herself back, the Cullens were taking in what she said. Tanya had just answered all their questions before they could even ask them. Their friends were dead, and Edward had indeed betrayed them, even though the information was a lot to take in all at once. But what other choice did they have currently? Since Edward had betrayed them, it meant he went looking for them and didn't find them as they had already left. So they dealt with Tanya's coven, but now they would for sure know where to look next, and would be coming to Forks, and they shouldn't be too far behind Tanya and should be closing in as they speak. Carlisle had already thought of this and spoke quickly. Everyone, we are leaving here now. The Volturi shouldn't be too far off from reaching Forks, so we won't be able to outrun them. Our best chance of survival now is only one person, and that's Damon, says Carlisle. Everyone present was shocked by this sudden decision, but now wasn't the time to question things, and they all knew Damon would provide them with a higher chance of survival. But the problem was, would Damon allow them to stay there after they told him the truth of the matter, or would he leave them to fend for themselves? The last you told me, you don't have a good relationship with this Damon. Will he really let you stay with him? Asked Tanya. Hearing her question, everyone looked at her. Since her little rant, everyone had chosen to ignore her, seeing how upset she was and the guilt they felt towards what happened. But hearing her asking this question, Carlisle answered, I don't know. But it's the best choice we have, so let's go. We don't have the time to be standing here talking when the Volturi could be closing in, says Carlisle. As the Cullens quickly left their home and sped towards Damon's house, they had no idea how lucky they were to make such a quick and smart decision. As they left, in the forest, not too far away from the Cullen house, to a vampire multiple shadows sped towards the location of the Cullens' now empty house. One of these fast shadows was moving much slower than the others, as it was clear to see with the human eye. It was Edward struggling along to kill the members of his former family. When the team of Volturi members and Edward arrived at the Cullen residence, they immediately charged in, but as they searched, they found an empty house. Seeing this, it wouldn't take a genius to figure out what happened. They had escaped, but their scent was still present and strong. They're gone. Even if they smelled us, they shouldn't have run away after all. They don't know we know what they did. It would seem as if they were tipped off to our intentions and left a couple minutes before we arrived, says Jane as she glances at Edward. Of course he felt it and knew what she was thinking, and he hurriedly said, Jane, it wasn't me. Have you forgotten that Tanya escaped? If I'm not mistaken, she must have come to warn them, and was successful. Jane continued to stare at Edward intently. She did trust him at all. You're lucky I can pick you her scent among them. Otherwise I'd rip your head from your body, Jane says with completely no change in her facial expression. She warned them, so they must be leaving, but from the direction their scent is heading, it appears to be going in the opposite direction. Jane thinks to herself. Do you think they are heading to warn this Damon person? Asked Felix. It's possible, but he did say their relationship wasn't that great, so I don't see why he would warn them instead of escaping directly, said Jane while pointing towards Edward. That's true. What do you think, Edward? Felix asked. They should be going to warn him, even though their relationship isn't great. Alice and Rosalie are with him, but even though Alice should have had a vision of you and the other team already, they shouldn't have left. Based on his personality, he would wait, thinking he could kill you all, says Edward. With his strength, there is a high possibility of that happening, but we should be able to overwhelm him with numbers. Most likely Carlisle has gone to seek refuge, knowing he can't outrun us, thinks Edward. Foolish thinking, but it works out for us. Let's go, says Felix. Says Jane as they set off following the Cullens' scent. As they set off, as Edward was the slowest, no one noticed the ugly expression on his face filled with unwillingness as he squeezed his only remaining fist. This wasn't what I had planned. Where the hell are the members of the Quileute tribe? I had no intention of facing off against him directly yet, screams Edward in his mind as he set off following them. Taking into account that Edward had also told the Volturi about the Shapeshifter tribe, the Volturi should be advancing much more carefully, or maybe not enter Fort at all, knowing 3 enemy groups were present. But like most who have held power for a long time, they have become arrogant, thinking no one could threaten them, and that will lead to their downfall. because as the Volturi entered Forks and moved towards the Cullens' home, Edward had given them the route that lead through the lands of the shapeshifters. This time, the Volturi main targets were the Cullens and Damon. The shapeshifters were an afterthought, something that could be killed off after dealing with the other two. Edward hoped the shapeshifters would catch their scent after they had already reached the Cullen house, and he would leave the Volturi to their deaths as he escaped to watch the battle between the other team and Damon. What Edward didn't know was the shapeshifters already knew they were coming before they arrived, and the only reason they passed through their land without any problems was that Damon asked them to let the Volturi through unhindered. So before his plan could begin, and without even knowing he was doing it, Damon had ruined his plans. Currently, even though Edward was only focused on revenge deep down, he knew he was still thinking about the right way to do it. And as he didn't know the extent of Damon's strength, his plan from the very start was to use the Volturi to test his strength while he watched from a safe distance, being able to escape at any time. But now, even though he was lagging behind, and it looked like this would be a perfect opportunity to separate from the group, he knew there were at least 3 different pairs of eyes watching him at all times, even though they were ahead of him, and the moment he tired, it would spell his end. As Edward ran through the forest, many thoughts entered his mind as though of many ways to separate from the Volturi. Things aren't going as I planned at all. As this thought appeared in Edward's mind, he could help but become even angrier. But it was useless anger, wouldn't change anything, things had already happened, he could only try his best to survive from now on and get his revenge. With Damon and his pack, they were spending the day like any other day, relaxing around the pool and enjoying themselves. No one would think these people were about to be attacked by an army of vampires, and they knew about it. "When are they going to arrive? I'm ready to fight already," complained Ocean. "It should be too long now. We already caught their scent when they entered the town, but it seems we will have some other guests before them," says Damon. "You mean the Cullens who are heading towards us?" asked Max. "Yeah, it seems they are a target of this little attack as well. If I had to guess, I'd say they want to seek protection," says Damon. Hearing this, everyone was quiet. "So, should we help them?" asked Kane. It's up to you guys. More enemies should be coming with them. If you want to fight them, fight them. If not, well, that's your choice," says Damon. But everyone understood what he meant. As Damon and his pack continued to wait for their approaching enemies and the Cullens, they had changed how they were currently standing. Of course, Damon stood in front of everyone, even though he had no intention of making a move. Behind him, his pack stood around Rosalie, keeping her protected in case of any attacks. It wasn't long after that there was movement coming from the house, as they stood waiting for the Cullens to appear before them. "It seems you're in a bad way, Carlisle. I wonder who could have tipped off the Volturi," says Damon, as the Cullens arrived before him. Carlisle, on the other hand, upon hearing Damon's question, couldn't help but sigh. "Damon, now isn't the time for this. I came to ask for your help this time," says Carlisle. "I know, and I won't chase you away, but I won't protect you either. If you live or die is completely based on your actions," says Damon. "Thank you," Carlisle said. Honestly, that was more than I was expecting him to do, and it was far easier than I thought I would be. No convincing, thinks Carlisle as he takes the other over to Damon's side. And as soon as they moved, there was another set of movement in the house, but this thing, it was clear it was far more people than before, and they weren't being careful. If the sound broke and things were anything to go by, whoosh, whoosh, whish, figures sped about in the house before finally, bang, crash. One after the other, vampires broke through the glass, running onto the backyard. And unlike the Cullens, there was no greeting or anything, they just attacked, rushing up to Damon's group. But even though they looked fast, they really weren't to Damon and most of his pack without needing to receive any kind of order. Kane and Ocean rushed forward. The speed at which they moved made the newborns look very slow to any who could actually track them with their eyes. Thud! Thud! Gut! Thud! The sound of 4 things dropping caught the attention of all the newborn vampires that had reached the backyard, and the others that were making their way out of the house. Then, without anyone noticing, Kane and Ocean were already back at Damon's side, heads in each of their hands, and a huge smile on each of their faces. Currently, there were 40 newborn vampires in the backyard of Damon's house, including the ones who hadn't made it completely out of the house, but they had stopped. They all were looking at one place, 4 bodies were on the floor without heads, these newborns were dead, completely dead. With their senses and emotions heightened from the recent turn, the noise had managed to attract their attention, while the fact they could be killed this easily shocked them. Fear appeared in the minds of the newborns. 4 of them were killed so easily without being able to do anything. This wasn't what they told us. This sentence echoed in the minds of all the newborns. And then the thought of running away appeared, and slowly it overpowered the fear they had for Alec's ability. Soon, some of the newborns even started backing up with the intention of escaping Oro and Alec. It seems they want to run, says Alec as he watches the scene below unfold. Yes, they have forgotten the pain that can be inflicted upon them at any time, responds Oro. It's time for a reminder. As he said that immediately after all that, a group of heart-wrenching screams sounded from below. H. Looking at the screaming newborns, Damon already knew what was happening. What's going on? We haven't even begun to attack yet. They're already screaming in pain, asked Kane. Inability of one of the Volturi members, it probably can cause pain on a large scale, says Damon. He's right, it's one of the Volturi's main weapons, Alec. Carlisle says, stepping forward with an input. So it seems that they are close by, said Damon, as he watched the window on the top floor of his house. That should be them, staying back, watching how things unfold. Both of them should be real members of the Volturi, thinks Damon. It seems the real targets aren't ready to appear yet, said Damon. It seems so. I wonder which of them has the power you mention, says Kane. Doesn't matter much, does it? Vampires' abilities rarely work on werewolves, and when they do it, takes a considerable amount of effort to get the same effect as if it was used on another vampire, says Damon. As Damon and his group conversation, when the screams stopped and the newborns were able to catch their breath. And they were also able to understand the meaning of that sudden pain as they stared at Damon and his pack with resolve. I guess you're right. This will be a lot less fun than I thought it would be, says Ocean. Well, you gave yourself those expectations, so it's best you go enjoy yourself, says Damon. Hearing this, the members of Damon's pack that wanted to fight sped off as bloodlust filled the air. Kane, Ocean, Joey, Crystal, and Max all rushed out, while Alice, Jasper, Bella, Damon, Rosalie, and the Cullens stayed back and watched the show. No one from Damon's pack was worried as they rushed into the 40-odd newborns. Let's bet on who kills the most. The winner can order the others to do one thing each, says Max. I'm in, the others agreed. Immediately as the killing was about to begin, Damon on the side moved back to Rosalie's side as he continued to watch as the two parties were about to reach each other. It seems the whole party will be here soon. Finally, things can be cleaned up before the birth of the little princess, says Damon as he smells another group of vampires approaching, recognizing one scent in particular. There isn't much to worry about here. Maybe I should go and intercept them, thinks Damon as he caught the scent of the other Volturi group approaching. Damon is pulled from his thoughts as the screams of vampires filled his ears. The forums had finally collided, and the result was as expected. The werewolves killed the newborns with ease. Every single attack was lethal and contained werewolf venom from every bite to stab. Kane, for one, was plucking the heart of every newborn that appeared before him. His claw injected great amounts of venom in each of his targets. Ocean was far different. He liked to play with his prey, and so far had killed the least, taking his time to remove every limb before finally crushing the newborn's head. These two were by far the most unique. The others simply decapitated the vampires that came before them quickly and cleanly. Clearly, they were taking the bet more seriously. Max, for one, was doing what he could and had killed 15 vampires already. One bite was all it took for him to kill a vampire, crushing them completely and infecting them with venom. With all this going on, the vampires' numbers were dropping quickly. The battle that had just started was sure to be done before even 20 minutes had passed. Seeing this result, Damon wasn't surprised. It was expected. His pack wasn't even using the gifts that received after he transformed them, as they weren't needed. But while his pack was dealing with the newborns, Damon noticed the other group had also arrived at the house, and it didn't take long for them to appear in Damon's line of sight on the bottom floor of the house. Looking at the events unfolding, it seems things aren't playing out how you planned, Arrow, says Felix. The werewolves are stronger than we originally thought. That is even more reason to get rid of them now, since we won't win by numbers. Alec will just have to subdue them, then we kill them one by one, says Arrow as he and Alec descend the stairs, also entering everyone's line of sight. Rosalie is his weakness. She is his mate. Edward added, "You be quiet, it's your fault. It took so long to arrive here in the first place," says Jane. Never mind him. But since she is his mate, let's get rid of her first, says Arrow. Damon moved, speeding through the chaotic fight happening in his backyard. No one noticed he moved not the Volturi and not the werewolves in his pack. Whoosh! As they spoke, they didn't pay any attention to doing it in secret, and Damon, with his greater hearing, heard everything they said, word for word. Damon left no trail, not even an afterimage could be seen, as He arrived where the Volturi were. In Damon's eyes, they were as vulnerable as a baby. Even as he got so close, they hadn't noticed him. Crack! Bam! Damon sped up to Arrow and grabbed him by the neck and squeezed hard. It didn't take long before Arrow's neck was completely crushed and his head fell to the floor, finally alerting all the Volturi members of Damon's presence. The Volturi members looked at the now decapitated Arrow and quickly fell back, assuming a defensive formation with Jane and Alec in the middle, while Felix and the other 8 vampires stood around them. It seems you all think you can harm my family and live to tell the tale. I'm here to prove you very wrong, said Damon. His voice was surprisingly calm, not full of rage. You'd expect from a werewolf whose family was just threatened, but the violent aura barely contained in him said something very different. Damon, who usually liked to play with his prey, wasn't in that mood, so he moved quickly, and with every second, a head dropped to the ground and broke like glass. All of their guards were dead as Damon held Felix by his neck and stared down Jane and Alec. Felix, who was being strangled and held in the air, kept trying to fight back. Bam! 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 Punches and kicks impacted Damon's body, but he remained standing and solid. Chinch, we are. He's either fighting through it or it's not affecting him, said Jane. Why aren't you two using your powers to stop him? Shouted Felix as he continued to struggle in Damon's hold. Damon continued to squeeze Felix's neck until finally he stopped moving and his head popped off. Bam! His head dropped to the floor and shattered, and Damon dropped his body to the floor. You idiots have made so many mistakes that you're not even aware of, so let me explain them to you. The first was listening to whatever that idiot Edward told. The second, believing whatever he told you. The third, coming here thinking you could kill us. Fourth was coming here, and lastly was threatening my family. At least Edward was smart enough to run from the start, you two. On the other hand, we're foolish, so you will die. But don't worry, I'll send him to join you soon, says Damon. The siblings couldn't say anything. The bloodlust coming from Damon was the strongest they have ever felt, and they couldn't move. Damon quickly killed them by decapitation and then looked back to the field behind him. Oh, Edward, do you really think you can get away after bringing this trouble to my home? Damon asked, no one in particular, as he disappeared, tracking Edward. While he was dealing with the Volturi, the newborns were already killed by Damon's pack, and since the place was already safe, Damon quickly sniffed the air and sped off. It doesn't matter, does it? It killed the most, so you all know what that means, right? Questioned Max. Well, that was less exciting than I thought it would be, said Ocean. So no one is going to go after Damon? Asked Carlisle. Edward ran through the forest quickly, without looking back. He didn't need to look back. He knew he was being chased. And with every step, he took the fear he felt increased and consumed him. He blamed the Volturi, he blamed Damon, anyone but himself. But it didn't matter who he blamed now, it was too late. He had got an enemy out of someone he shouldn't have. And finally, the price was going to catch up with him. Whoosh! Whoosh! Edward ran with all his might and speed, which currently wasn't that much seeing as he was still injured. The speed he was going wasn't fast enough to escape Damon or anyone in his pack. Edward knew this, but he refused to give in. Once he accepted the fact that he couldn't escape, there would be no hope left for him to cling on to. The fact of the matter was, Edward knew Damon wanted to kill him long ago, but there was always something or someone to beg for him. But this time, he had burned all bridges, leaving no one to care if he lived or died. So he ran for his life, ignoring the end he knew was coming. Damon rushed through the forest, following Edward's scent. It wasn't long till he saw Edward trying his best to run away, all his focus in front of him. Seeing this, Damon quickly approaches, and in one fluid motion, bam! Boom! H. One kick, Damon put a lot of his strength into the kick and with no surprise managed to completely separate his feet from his body by the knee. Edward's feet were flung forward and collided with a tree while Edward fell to the ground, clearly in pain if his scream was anything to go by. Damon stood over the injured Edward and shook his head. Edward rolled onto his back and looked at Damon. His eyes contained only hatred and fear. He didn't speak as he looked at Damon. He didn't cry out in pain anymore. His hatred blocked out everything. Damon, on the other hand, looked at Edward, and no emotion could be seen on his face or in his eyes. It was as if he was looking at nothing. Damon didn't care about Edward. To him, he was already dead. If anything, this was happening far later than it should have. Damon bent down and grabbed Edward's neck and squeezed. He said nothing throughout the whole process. Edward, of course, fought back, slashing and hitting Damon with his only hand. Bam! Edward's head and body dropped to the ground. Looking at the body, Damon took a lighter from his pocket and burned the body and left. There wasn't a need for torture or saying anything. Damon just did what he should have done from the start and left. He felt nothing towards Edward, seeing as he considered him dead already. There wasn't even a need to torture him. Damon returned to his home, quickly only to meet the other cleaning up the damage done and burning the bodies of the vampires. Edward? Rosalie asked as she spotted his return. Dead as he should be, responded Damon. That's good. I'll be leaving with Max soon. We need to get rid of the remaining Volturi members. The others will stay here to protect you, says Damon. What about the original vampire? Asked Rosalie. One problem at a time, love. We will clean up the Volturi first, then he will be dealt with. He won't live to the day our child is born, says Damon. Damon walked up to Rosalie and hugged her. I'll be back soon, and I'll have a great surprise for you, says Damon. Fine, but it better be good. Hearing this response, Damon smiled and released Rosalie from his embrace. It won't just be good, it will become something we will never forget, says Damon as he walks into the back of the house with Rosalie following him. Arriving at the back of the house, Damon meets the others here still. The bodies had been cleaned up and burnt. If the large burn spot in the yard was anything to go by, but Damon didn't care about any of this. Max, we have something to do. We're leaving now, and the rest of you will stay here to protect Rosalie, says Damon. Fine, but these guys still own me when we return, said Max. All right, we won't go back on the bet, the others said, but Max didn't believe them at all as he walked over to Damon. Be careful, both of you, says Rosalie. We will, they say in unison. From start to finish, Damon didn't even look at the Cullen who had come for protection, but he could still feel their eyes on him. It was clear they wanted to ask something, and you didn't need to be a genius to figure out what they wanted to ask. He's dead, Damon said as he and Max sped away. When he spoke, he didn't look at anyone, and he didn't mention a name, but everyone present understood who Damon was speaking about. His pack wasn't surprised, and they didn't care. The Cullen was a mixed mess that was a combination of trying not to care and clearly sad. Finally, Carlisle sighed. There was nothing he could do, and he was trying his best to feel nothing, but it wasn't that simple, after caring about someone for so many years, even with everything that had happened. Saying something and really doing it are two very different things. Even though we had agreed to not care about his life or death, that really was just words, thinks Carlisle. Maybe that's for the best. Living with how he had become wasn't good. Maybe this will give him peace, says Carlisle. I think so as well. This should be for the best. This is Esme. Away from the house, Damon and Max were moving quickly towards the Volturi base. So what's the surprise you have for Rosalie? Asked Max. You know, sometimes I forget how much you seem to like gossip, says Damon. Teach, if you don't want to tell, then don't, but don't go about spreading rumors about me. I have never once engaged in any type of gossip in my long life, says Max righteously. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna ask her to marry me. Don't you think I waited enough? Asked Damon. Hearing this, Max didn't even look surprised as they kept running. It's about time. If you had waited any longer, I would have had to step in and do it for you, says Max. What the hell? Asked Damon as he looked at Max. What? Feeling Damon's gaze, Max turned and asked, You guys get married is not surprising. What's surprising is that you have waited this long to even ask her. You guys are soulmates, already string a family, and can't live without each other. So marriage isn't even surprising. As I said, you have waited too long, says Max. Damon's expression turned to one of complete surprise as he looked at Max. Seeing Damon's expression, a look of gloating started to appear on Max's furry face. The fact that I was able to notice these things before you once again shows what we all know. You are kind of slow. Last, if I wasn't here to show you right from wrong, how would you survive in this world without being used by others? The day you met me and I decided to let you turn me, seeing how pitiful you were, was the greatest day of your life. It can be considered that you have used up all your luck for 10 lifetimes finding a friend like me, says Max with a completely straight face and a voice full of conviction. That's how. This sentence managed to bring Damon to a halt as he stood stunned. This cunt. How can he be so fucking self-serving? This thought appeared in Damon's mind as he looked at Max, who had stopped across from him. Seeing Damon stunned and looking at him, Max continued, I know I'm majestic, but staring that long will... Max didn't get to complete his sentence as Damon rushed him and tackled him to the ground. You fucking bastard, it seems like you haven't learned to be humble, says Damon as he pins Max down. Humble for what? Do you want to take the violent route because what I said was right? Then come on, I'm not afraid. says Max as he manages to kick Damon off him and stand up. Facing off against each other now, both Max kept their eyes on each other. One mistake would let the other take advantage. Hey Damon, I'm not afraid of you, but shouldn't we deal with the Volturi before we settle this? Asked Max. I actually forgot about that, said Damon. And you think you can match my genius, thinks Max. Fine, let's deal with them first, then settle this, says Damon as he turns to continue on. As he did, a light shinned in Max's eyes, and he quickly jumped Damon. Or we settle it now, after all, it won't take long, just call me uncle and I'll stop, says Max excitedly. All Damon knew was a shadow covered him, then he heard Max's voice, and he knew he was tricked, but it was too late, as Max already had him pinned down. 1 hour and some minutes later, Max and Damon were finally able to settle themselves and were on their way to the Volturi. Damo's clothes had rips in different places, while Max didn't look like anything happened to him as they continued to rush forward. Thanks. As they rushed, Damon says, you're thanking me for a beating. I knew you had some fetishes, but I didn't expect this, says Max. Hearing this, Damon shakes his head. Can't you be serious for a minute? I'm thanking you for thinking about my future and for being there for me and Rosalie, says Damon. Don't ever do that again, said Max seriously. Ha! Damon asks, surprised by his response. I just thanked you, says Damon. I know, but don't do it again. We are brothers. You never have to thank me for that kind of thing. You would do the same for me. There is no need for those words to be said between us. We just do what brothers are supposed to do for each other, says Max. I guess you're right. We are brothers, so this will be the last time I ever thank you. We just do what is expected, said Damon. Good. Who would have thought that one day I would have a wolf as a best friend, as a brother, but I couldn't ask for a better one, thinks Damon. Hey, I just had a great idea, says Damon. I bet it isn't, said Max. Oh, come on, I can have good ideas, says Damon. Fine, let's hear it, says Max. Why don't you find a female wolf, and I'll turn her, then you two can have a baby, and we can raise our kid together, says Damon. For once, it really isn't a bad idea, says Damon. So what do you say? Asked Damon. Fine, let's do it. But we have something to do. First, remember, says Max. Yeah, I haven't forgotten. Let's go deal with them. I'll have to buy a ring as well, says Damon. Damon and Man continued on their way this time. No or stopping, both thinking of the future. Max thinks of raising a son and teaching him to troll Damon. While Damon thinks of his whole family together after all the threats have been killed off, living for eternity, and of course he was also thinking of how to get back at Max for before. As they got closer to the Volturi headquarters, their targets had no idea that the teams they had sent were dead, and they would be next. Damon and Max had upped their travel speed and arrived in the city where the headquarters of the Volturi was by nightfall. When they arrived, they didn't draw any unwanted attention to themselves as they walked around. This city smells disgusting. Max complains as he walks next to Damon with his face distorted from the smell. I agree, it's best we do your business quickly and leave. Smelling this for too long will surely kill me, Damon says. A city which is the home of vampires. It smells terrible sweet, but I guess that's to be expected. Thanks, Damon. And as they moved forward, complaining about the smell, they were also using it to find out how many vampires there were in the city. The places with the highest number of vampires is straight ahead, and there are some more throughout the city, says Max. Yeah, it seems at best we split up and deal with them separately. The only question is who goes where, says Damon. For all I care, you can go to the headquarters, I'll deal with the stragglers, then just follow my scent to find me. I'll be somewhere outside the range of the scent, says Max as he speeds off, no doubt going after one of the vampires he had found, leaving Damon standing alone. Alright then, into the vampire nest we go, says Damon as he speeds off. Wood's couple miles away. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 4 shadows moving quickly are running through the forest, heading in the direction of the city. Damon and Max are in right now. It was clear from their speed they aren't humans, that only left vampires. The darkness of night covered their faces, and combined with their speed, it was impossible to tell what they looked like. As they ran in formation, one soon spoke. Why has Master suddenly ordered the destruction of the Volturi? One of the shadows asked in a deep voice, belonging to a man. Who knows, the only thing to do is carry out his orders completely. I'm sure lately you all have noticed Master becoming crazier by the day. Another shadow says in a feminine voice. Oh, how I miss the good old time, the third says. We all do, but seeing as 2 vampires sent by Master have been killed, you can't belay him for becoming suspicious, says the final shadow. Suspicion, is that what you call it? I would think it was full-on crazy. One responded, "You two stop now. Isn't it time for you to start fighting? Even though the mission this time is easy. We can't make any mistakes. The Volturi must be wiped out. If even one person escapes, we will be killed. I'm sure you all know that. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter if we complete this mission or not. With the way things are developing, we will be dead soon either way, and you all know I'm right." "Well, it's been a good life longer than expected, but at least I enjoyed it." "Kitch, you all are complaining as if you have the right. So what if Master kills us? If it wasn't for him, we'd all be dead. Anyway, he saved us, letting us live this long, enjoying anything we wanted. If he wants to end this life of ours, just present your neck for him to cut." One of the shadows said, "We will..." Hearing this, the others turned quiet. If they agreed with what was said or not is unknown. They continued forward as all conversation ceased. Max. After leaving Damon, Max had run off to find his first target to begin his killing spree for the night, but all he cared about was getting out of the terrible smell that kept invading his nose. Max's first target was a man who was about to feed on a local in an alleyway. When Max arrived, he didn't waste any time and swiftly bite off the head of his target, making sure the blow would kill by using his venom. As for the lady that was about to be fed on, she stood shocked as the vampire that was holding her from behind in a tight hold suddenly dropped to the ground. "I'm glad you're fine, but I don't have the time to help you through your panic right now, so sleep and think of this as a dream." Hearing the voice from behind her, the lady who was just saved was scared, even more so than when she was being attacked before, but as the panic started setting in, she noticed her vision getting darker until there was nothing. "On to the next one," says Max as he glances towards the corroding body. "This should be gone by morning," was all he said, then sped off. Max's night continued like this as he went from one target to the other, killing them all with a bite filled with venom, then leaving their bodies to corrode. As the time passed, Max had already killed nearly 15 vampires throughout the city and was now his final target. "Just up ahead," said Max as he ran on the main road towards his target. It wasn't long till a person appeared in his view, and Max attacked, growing one size from his current dog size to bite off the person's head in one go. Bam! The body dropped to the ground, making it truly the 15th vampire he killed tonight, another life lost. But Max could care less. All this meant to him was that he could exit this city and get away from this terrible smell that was enveloping this city. Not waiting around, Max set off from where he came, heading straight out of the city until he was out of range of the smell. "I'm sure Damon will be fine. He should be back by the time this scent has cleared from my nose and I'm able to smell properly again," said Max. But what Max didn't notice was that 4 pairs of eyes were watching him in interest. If the smell wasn't bothering him as much, maybe he would have been able to focus on hearing them. But now he was clearly in trouble without knowing it. "Damn, that fucking smell is disgusting. Damon better hurry the hell up and finish his part of things," Max says out loud. While Max was trying to clear his nose of the smell, the 4 pairs of eyes watching him now contained a trace of what could only be called surprise and interest. But they still didn't move or talk, as Max was still facing their general direction. But as he continued to shake his head, trying to get rid of the smell, his back was now facing them, and without hesitation, the 4 people moved. Bam! Boom. Boom! Max's unprepared for an attack was flung out as one of the 4 managed to kick him away. As he was currently the size of a house dog, the strength of the kick managed to blast him through 4 trees before he fell to the ground. "Hey, Zach, you idiot. What if you killed it? I want to observe it." "More, this is the first time I have ever seen a talking dog," one of the vampires said. "Relax, Angel. I lifted my strength. At most, the dog should be knocked out. We don't have time to waste here. Anyway, so just go get it, and let's go," says the vampire revealed to be Zach. "Alright, I'll go get..." She didn't get to finish as a voice invaded their ears. Today isn't turning out to be a good day at all. I just wanted to get rid of this scent now. I have to deal with these 4 idiots. Couldn't they have waited till Damon comes back?" The voice says, talking to itself. But the 4 vampires all looked towards where Max had been kicked away to, as there were footsteps. It didn't take much longer for Max to appear before them completely unharmed, as if nothing happened. He hadn't changed his size, he just raised his head and looked at the vampires. Seeing that Max returned and was staring at them, the vampires also stared at him. "Zach, I know you said you'd heed back, but shouldn't he at least be injured?" asked Angel. "He should be," Zach says. Max just listened, then suddenly his body began to grow bigger before their eyes, from the size of a small dog to the size of an elephant. His eyes shined with killing intent. "I'm not in the mood to hear you 2 talk since you attack me. I'll send you on your way quickly," says Max as he attacks right away. Volturi base. After Damon and Max separated, It didn't take long for Damon to find his way toward the headquarters, and without any hesitation or any kind of plan, Damon approached the building that had two people standing outside. The building itself was very old based on its design and looked very beautiful, but Damon didn't pay attention to any of this. As he approached, there was only one thing on his mind, and that was to kill everyone in this building. Damon didn't try in the slightest to hide his presence or sneak in as he approached the main entrance, and gained the attention of the two guards as they focused on Damon. He disappeared from their sight. As they took him as a normal human, they could not even know they were in danger before a hand existed their chest, and they sunk into eternal sleep. With his attack containing his venom, Damon was sure the two were dead, so he turned and moved deeper into the building. He didn't encounter much resistance, only one other vampire, before he encountered a large door with two more guards that were easily dispatched as Damon pushed open the door and entered the room. As Damon entered, the occupants of the room turned to face him, and he also focused on them. The leader of the Volturi, or at least the two that were still alive, Marcus and Caius.
Who are you and why have... The question was left unfinished as Damon rushed up and grabbed Marcus's neck, making him shut up.
Caius, who couldn't follow Damon's movement, looked bewildered as he stared at where Damon was standing before. It wasn't until he heard Marcus struggling that he turned around in time to see his friend's neck crushed in Damon's hands. Surprisingly, Caius didn't look that worried or even upset as Marcus's body dropped to the ground. Caius rushed to Damon and managed to grab his neck. A triumphant look appeared on his face as he increased the strength of his hold on Damon's neck, but Damon didn't even seem fazed as he casually grabbed Caius's wrist and pulled his hand from his neck and then ripped it from his body. A heart-wrenching scream echoed in the room, surely alerting all the other vampires in the building.
"Look what you have done.
Seem I'll have to speed up," says Damon as he approaches the screaming Caius. Realizing his death was near, Caius managed to suppress his fear as he spoke. "So please, I beg you, spare me. I haven't done anything to you. Why must you kill us?" Caius said repeatedly as Damon approached him. Seeing his begging not having the desired result, Caius spoke once again, trying another tactic. "Please spare us. It would be for your own good. Once you kill us, it will alert a stronger force and you will be killed. So just leave and we will pretend this never happened otherwise. Your death is sure along with everyone you hold dear," says Caius. "You mean the original vampire?" asked Damon. Yes, since you know it's best to leave now, otherwise you should know, only death will await you," says Caius, not caring how Damon knew about the original vampire. "Well, if it will draw him out, that's good. I want to deal with him anyway, so I guess we can add another reason to kill you to the list," says Damon. Caius couldn't say anything else as darkness consumed his mind. Peaceful. That was the atmosphere in the city. No one would be able to tell the amount of death that has happened in this city in one night. Form the vampires killed by Max, then the Volturi base that was completely empty. Now, due to the attack of Damon, this city was now completely empty of vampires, maybe the only place in the world that could hold that distinction. After killing Marcus and Caius, Damon went on to continue his attack on the vampires that were alerted by the noise. Then, finally he killed Atinadora, Sulpicia, and Corin, who were the wife of Caius and Arrow, while Corin would use her gift to comfort both women. They weren't in the main building, but even so, they didn't escape death at Damon's hands. Through the entrance Damon had used to enter the building, about 15 minutes later, he once again appeared here, leaving the building. It took 15 minutes to destroy the Volturi. His methods were simple, decapitation, and his action were quick, which lead to the quick and complete destruction of the Volturi and all present members. As Damon emerged from the building, he simply increased his speed, rushing out of the city, leaving it now free of vampires, as he rushed off to catch up with Max. Crunch. BM! A broken body dropped out of Max's mouth as he continued to stare at the two remaining vampires. "You four aren't like the normal disgusting smelling kind, so you must be working for the original. So what are you doing here?" Max asked. "We will just destroy the Volturi, then we will be on our way." "We had no intention of coming after you," answered one of the vampires. The previous nonchalant they had was gone, replaced with seriousness, with traces of fear. Hearing this response, Max was surprised. What were the chances that both parties would come to destroy the Volturi on the same night? Normally Max would be able to tell if they were lying just the smell, but seeing as he was currently having a problem, all he could do was believe his instincts. They are telling the truth, but it doesn't really matter. We are going to war with vampires, and since they were sent to destroy the Volturi, and we did it, we can use them for cover in the meantime. Since even though Damon wants them gone before the child is born, we won't do it now. At least now, before the wedding. So we can't have them going back and telling the truth. And even though we do have a way to control them, there is no guarantee that the original won't be able to see through that. So there is only one other solution. It turns out I'm a fantastic storyteller. And now hearing your explanation, I've come up with a new story. You see, 4 vampires were sent to destroy the Volturi, but the Volturi turned out to be stronger than expected. And the 4 powerful vampires fought with the Volturi to the death as they managed to destroy the Volturi, with the price being their life. I think this story would be very popular and acceptable. Your master, don't you think so? Asked Max. Hearing the story, Max came up with the 2 remaining vampires were easily able to determine there was no chance of Max letting them go peacefully. And the worst part of it was what he said was correct. Their master wouldn't care about their death as long as the mission was accomplished, and from the story, Max told the Volturi would be destroyed whether it had already been destroyed. They didn't know, but it didn't matter as Max had shown he had the strength to do it. So if he did it after he killed them, didn't matter. Knowing they were in danger, the 2 vampires didn't hesitate as they turned and set off at high speed, disappearing from Max's direct sight. Max stood looking at the fleeing vampires, but didn't move. Boom! Boom! Soon, 2 shadows flew through the air, landing in front of Max, as Damon appeared coming from the direction the vampires were fleeing to. Crunch! Max, without hesitation, bites off the heads of the 2 vampires as their bodies drop to the ground. Then Max spat out their heads. You seem to have been entertaining company while I was busy, says Damon, looking at the now shrinking Max. It sure as hell wasn't pleasing company, and I still can't get that smell out of my nose. What if it doesn't work right anymore? Asked Max. Well, it's simple. We would just need to get a wolf with a working nose, won't we? Says Damon. Please, as if you could ever replace me, says Max. You're right, it would be almost impossible to find another wolf that's as dumb as you, says Damon. Pot calling the kettle black, don't you think? Asked Max. Tibsh, let's deal with these bodies then set off. We still have to stop to get my engagement ring anyway, says Damon. The 2 didn't mess around anymore as they got to work cleaning up the area and getting rid of the traces from the fight. It didn't take that long as they collected the bodies and burned them. Won't they send more vampires to find out what happened when these guys don't show up? Asked Max. I would guess, but by then, the scent of their burning bodies should have already been gone, so they shouldn't be able to find anything. Says Damon. The Volturi has been destroyed and all the parts of our bodies are still working fine, so I think it's time we celebrate, says Damon. Maybe tomorrow, let's find the closest city and get some sleep. We will celebrate and look for your ring tomorrow, said Max. Coming to this conclusion, Max and Damon sprint off into the distance, leaving the immediate area quickly as it leaves their mind never to be thought about again. The night passed, and Damon and Max found a city after running at high speed for a while. Then from there, it was straight to a hotel that allowed dogs. And after texting Rosalie and letting her know that they wouldn't be back tonight, Damon and Max took a shower at the request of Max to try getting rid of the vampire scent, still holding his nose hostage. After the shower, it was straight to bed, as it would seem killing so much in so little time hadn't affected their sleep in the least, as they fell asleep in a minute after their heads touched the pillow. And so the night passed quickly. Next morning, on a king-size bed in a high-class hotel room, one could see a man and what looked to be a dog sleeping together in a rather hilarious fashion due to the position they were in. The man was on his back with his arms and feet stretched out on both sides, taking up a lot of the bed. The dog was fairly big, but the space left on either side was enough to accommodate him, but instead up was sleeping on the chest of the man with one of his back foot on the man's mouth, as it happened to be open, and his tail ran down the center of the man's face, as the dog's head had fallen to the side with his tongue hanging out. The position they were in looked uncomfortable, but it didn't stop them from sleeping through the night and half of the day. Sometime later, bam! I'm up, Max shouted as he jumped up from the ground and looked around to see what happened. Do you really need to be that loud this early in the morning? Asked Damon as he opened his eyes and stretched, then turned to Max. I'm gonna order room service. You want something? Yeah, about 12 scrambled eggs and as much ham as they got, answered Max as he snapped from his surprise. Damon just nodded and hopped off the bed and went towards the phone. Damon looked at the extension list below until he found what he was looking for. Picking up the phone, he dialed 9, then pressed the phone to his right ear. Hello, good morning, how may we serve you today? A cheerful voice sounded in Damon's ears. Hi, I'm just ordering breakfast. I would like 24 scrambled eggs, as much ham as I can get, and the biggest cup of coffee you got, says Damon. The line was silent, with both sides not talking clearly. The person on the other side was shocked by the request. Damon waited for the person to answer, but seeing it was taking so long, he opened his mouth to speak, but was cut off. Sir, it's 1 in the afternoon. We don't usually serve breakfast at this time, but I will organize it anyway. It will be delivered in 10 minutes. The voice said clearly less cheerful than the first time. Well, sorry for the inconvenience, says Damon as he hangs up the phone. Well, the food will be here soon. I'm going to take a shower, says Damon as he walks into the bathroom and closes the door. Max, on the other hand, climbed back onto the bed and curled into a ball and went back to sleep. 12 minutes later, Damon exits the bathroom in nothing but a towel as he looks on the bed to see the sleep Max. But before he could do anything, he hears a knock on the room door. Leaving Max, Damon walks to the door and opens it to see 3 men pushing serving carts. Oh, you have our food, we'll come in, says Damon as he moves out of the way. As he does, the men push the carts into the room, revealing 1 giant plate of eggs and 2 giant plates of what looked like sliced ham. And then there was a cup of coffee. Smelling the arrival of food, Max had woken up and jumped from the bed. Damon didn't even bother with him as he went for his pants and took out his wallet and tipped the 3 men $100 each, after which they left and Damon and Max started eating. It wasn't long after that they had finished eating and left the hotel and were currently walking around the city looking for a place to buy an engagement ring. I don't feel like walking anymore. We have no idea where to go or where we are, says Max as it sounds like a normal dog crying as there are other people around. Fine, if it will shut up, I'll call a taxi, says Damon as pulls out his phone. Should have done that from the start. Max grumbles. Raise his eyes for his phone, Damon responds. You know, I always wanted to eat wolf meat. I hear it's supposed to be soft and sweet. You cannibal. I can't believe I'm friends with a cannibal, Max says as he steps back. Oh, shut it, will you? The taxi should be here any moment, says Damon. How can I shut up when all this time you tricked me into thinking we were friends and now I hear you want to eat me? Asked Max. Oh my god, it was a joke, says Damon. Then why didn't I find it funny? Asked Max. The taxi is here, so let's go, says Damon. They both enter the taxi as the driver turns to them and asks, Where do you want to go? Take us to the nearest jewelry store, says Damon. All right. The drive was short, and they arrived at a high-end jewelry store and entered it. The store was huge, with 4 long counters showcasing different types of jewelry. There was also a woman behind each counter. Damon wasted no time and went straight for the ring display. All the rings they had showing looked incredible. But as Damon looked them over, he had already made up his mind on the one that best suited Rosalie. How much for that ring? Asked Damon, pointing to a ring that had a huge pink diamond with 2 other diamonds on each side while being held in place by what looked like claws made from gold. Good afternoon, sir. The price for that ring would be around $30,000, but if the price is $30,000, that's fine. Wrap it up for me. The size looks to be about what I'm looking for, so there should be no need for resizing, says Damon. Right away, sir. The lady looked surprised at Damon's quick decision, but she still acted quick. Well, that was fast, says Max. Yeah, the first store we went to, but you can't deny that this ring fits her perfectly, says Damon. I guess you're right, so what are we doing after? You want to relax a while before we head back, or head back to Forks straight away? Asked Max. I think we should head back. I plan if we run at top speed, we should return before it's too late. I plan to propose to Rosalie tonight. After all, I've waited long enough, says Damon. All right, straight back it is. Sir, the ring has already been wrapped up for you. Will you be paying in cash or card? We accept all major Visa and MasterCards, the lady said. Okay. Damon took out his wallet and handed the lady the first card he saw. After that, they didn't stay much longer in the store. After the process was over, Damon took the ring and he and Max left the city. The two then started running back to Forks at a very high speed, hoping to return before 8 at night, seeing as Damon wanted to carry Rosalie out. And their rushing did pay off. It was about 5 when they arrived back in Forks and entered the house. You guys took longer than we thought you would. So did something happen? Questioned Rosalie as she walked downstairs. Nothing we can't handle. Anyways, go get ready, because tonight we are going out, says Damon. Oh, what's the occasion? Nothing that special, I just realized we haven't been out for a while, so let's go. I won't take no for an answer. We meet back here at 7, says Damon. Fine. Rosalie ascended the stair and returned to their room, most likely getting ready for their dinner, while Damon soon followed and Max sped off into the forest. Time skip. It was 7, and Rosalie was standing at the door waiting for Damon. She was dressed in all red, a beautiful flowing red dress, red heels, and red lipstick. She looked absolutely beautiful. It wasn't long after that Damon also arrived dressed in a black suit. You look beautiful, love, says Damon. Thank you. You look handsome as well. So where are we going tonight? Asked Rosalie. I've made reservations at a restaurant, and after that, I still have another surprise for you, says Damon. All right then, let's go, says Rosalie. They left the house and went outside to one of Damon's cars as he opened the door for her and then shut it before he went around to his side and drove off. It's been a long time since we used a car, hasn't it? Asked Rosalie. It has, after all. Most times, at the speed we move at, they aren't needed, says Damon. After I give birth, we will be using them more to carry around our child, which reminds me we need a car seat, says Rosalie. We would need a car more suitable for that too, after all. The car we have right now are supercars, says Damon. And maybe a minivan, says Rosalie. Ha 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 ha, Hida. They both laughed at that. Rosalie then stretched out her hand and grabbed one of Damon's as she intertwined her fingers with his, leaving him one hand to drive with. As they drive along, they continued the small talk until they arrived at the restaurant. Damon escorted her inside after leaving his car to be parked by a chauffeur. They entered and found the place empty as Damon had paid a lot of money to rent out the whole place for one night so they could have the place to themselves. The only people here were the chauffeur, a waiter, and a chef. They spent 3 hours in the restaurant talking about anything that came to mind, from their future child's name to how many more they were having. When were they leaving Forks, as they could stay here forever, seeing as they wouldn't age. They also talked about heavier topics such as what happened to the Volturi and when they were going to deal with the original vampire. They had come to the conclusion that the Volturi destruction wouldn't cause too much trouble. Vampires didn't want to be exposed anyway, so they would keep hidden, and the thought of something out there being able to destroy the whole Volturi would surely keep them in check. After they were finished at the restaurant, Damon began to drive until he couldn't anymore, so he stopped the car and got out, bringing Rosalie with him. They walked through the forest as fireflies lit up the sides, causing a beautiful sight. Rosalie looked at this display as her eyes sparkled. The fireflies formed a walkway that they followed until they reached a place that made Rosalie stop. Seeing this, Damon spoke. This is the place we first meet. It seemed only fitting this be the place, says Damon. The place for what? Damon let go of Rosalie's hand and stood in front of her, then got down on one knee. Rosalie, I love you with all my heart. Words couldn't describe what I feel about you. Since I meet you, I can't imagine a day in the future without you. And for that, I have decided to spend the rest of my life with you, the person I love the most beautiful woman in the world, inside and out. Rosalie, would you do me the honor of being my wife? Asked Damon. Rosalie stood looking at Damon, who was on one knee, and as the words echoed in her mind, it didn't take long for her eyes to water and tears to start pouring down her face. Yes, I will marry you. Without hesitation, Rosalie answered loudly as she pulled Damon to his feet and launched herself into his arms with tears still pouring down her face. Damon, on the other hand, was feeling extreme happiness and relief as he heard Rosalie's answer. Even though he knew with all his heart that Rosalie would say yes, he was still nervous during the process. Damon was so happy, in fact, for the first time since he came to this world, he shed tears as he hugged Rosalie. As their embrace ended, Damon slipped the ring on her finger. I love it, Damon, says Rosalie as she looks at the ring. I thought you might say that, after all. I know you very well, my love, and some so beautiful would only be fitting on your hand, says Damon. Rosalie blushed at his compliment, even though he made sure to compliment her every day. Rosalie still got flustered by it. As they looked into each other's eyes lovingly, they both sighed and turned to look to their right. All right, guys, you can come out now. We know you are there, says Damon. After saying that, the shadow on their right moved, and the whole pack appeared one after the other, all having smiles on their faces. At least you did one thing right. Coming back to the place you two met was a nice touch, said Max. Of course, I know that. I did it, didn't I? Says Damon. I'm so happy, Rosalie. It's decided I will help you plan your wedding. Oh, I can't wait for your wedding to come. Flowers, dancing, and music. It will be the best day of your life, says Alice as she runs up and grabs Rosalie from Damon. Calm down, Alice. We haven't even set a date yet, says Rosalie. As soon as possible. We'd be getting married as soon as possible, well before the baby comes. And I'm sure Rosalie doesn't want a big wedding, just family, says Damon. Yes, Damon is right. The wedding won't be a big one. Just everyone who is here right now will be enough, says Rosalie. All right, everyone, let's get back home. We have things to do for the wedding, says Damon. After saying that, the group returned to the house, and that night they celebrated the engagement of Damon and Rosalie. After that night, Rosalie couldn't get a moment of peace in the next couple of days. As Alice dragged her all over the place, tending to all her wedding details, Alice's excitement affected everyone in the house, as they each helped prepare the things needed for the wedding. And the time passed by quickly. and before anyone noticed anything, 2 months had passed and all the plans for the wedding had been made and carried out, all accumulated into this day. Wedding day. Currently on a cliff facing a magnificent view of a green and healthy forest below, there was a white arch set up, with a small number of chairs facing it with Damon standing by the arch, wearing a suit and looking down at the approaching wedding party. In the distance, one could see Max walking slowly towards the wedding site at his full size, as Rosalie sat on his back with her huge dress trailing down the sides of Max. To the side of Max, the other members of the pack could also be seen dressed in suits and dresses, walking slowly beside Max while they sang "Here Comes the Bride." As the wedding party approached, Max began to slowly decrease his size until they arrived at the beginning of the rows of chairs, and Rosalie stood on her own feet looking dead at Damon, who hadn't taken his eyes off her since she came on sight. The pack members didn't stop singing as Bella and Slice came to Rosalie's side and held her dress as she walked down the aisle. As she did, the member one by one found their seats, as Ocean sped to the arch and stood further back so Damon could stand in front of him, as he would be doing the ceremony. It wasn't long after that Rosalie reached the end of the aisle, standing directly across from Damon. "You look beautiful, my love," says Damon. "As do you, my dear," says Rosalie. "Let's start the ceremony." Says Ocean, "We are gathered here today to sickness the union of Rosalie and Damon as these two become one." Ocean continued carrying the ceremony orderly and correctly until he got to the vows. "Rosalie, you are my life and my heart. Before I formed my mate bond with you, I never wanted one. But since the day we meet, I know I could never be complete without you. I couldn't live without you. You are the love of my life, the light in my heart. You are my everything. And I will spend the coming eternity. We are together, making you happy." Says Damon, "Damon, I've spent the most part of my life waiting for the one who would love me, even after knowing the real me. And I thank God every day it was you. You, with your love, made my heart literally beat once more and have occupied the most important place in my heart. If you're sad, I'm sad. If you're happy, I'm happy. We live and die together." Says Rosalie. They both smiled hearing the other's vows and held hands as their fingers intertwined and affection spilled from their bodies. After their vows were said, the ceremony continued. As they said, "I do. By the power invested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride," says Ocean. Damon and Rosalie immediately kissed, filled with passion and love, and their kiss lasted for at least 5 minutes before they separated. With the wedding done and out of the way, the pack went into relaxation mode. With nothing planned, the pack spent the 2 weeks after the wedding doing their own thing outside the house, and only came back after 2 weeks to give Rosalie and Damon some alone time. As they returned, nothing changed. The only thing they did was relax, as they all knew this was the calm before the storm. Soon they would be up against the oldest vampire in existence and his followers. And as the days passed, that day was becoming clearer, as Damon had told them some news when they returned to the house. The news was simple, but it contained a lot of information that would affect the plans of the pack. This was also why they hadn't gone after the original vampire yet. The news Damon had given them was this: the baby had stopped absorbing his aura, and the rate at which Rosalie was absorbing his aura had increased by a great deal. The news shocked them all. If the speed at which Rosalie was absorbing aura had increased, they had no way of knowing when her transformation would be done. Damon had thought, since the baby was absorbing more than Rosalie, she wouldn't be finished with her transformation before the baby was born. And since they didn't want to wait for the baby to be born before dealing with the original vampire, they would deal with it after Damon and Rosalie's honeymoon. But obviously things have changed. No one dared to leave the house now, or let any visitors near the house. This was the most crucial time, as Rosalie's transformation would be felt by all vampires in the world. Currently at the house, the mood in the house was completely serious, as everyone except Damon and Rosalie were gathered in the living room. Damon said the speed has slowed down this morning, but that isn't something to be happy about. He said either today or tomorrow, Rosalie won't be able to absorb any more of his aura, so her transformation will be done during that time, says Max. Everyone knows what that means. It will take a few days after the transformation, but vampires will storm this place. Our job is simple, that is to kill all who dared come, says Kane. Even if we are stronger than those first-generation vampires, we are still outnumbered greatly. We won't come out of this completely uninjured, says Ocean. You guys don't need to worry too much. As long as Damon is in good enough condition when they arrive, this will be nothing more than a training exercise. And even if he isn't, I'll carry most of the load, just deal with those that get past me, says Max. There is no need for that. We are all family. We will fight together. And as Max said, once our leader is all right, this will be all right, says Crystal. What about Bella? Head wasn't turned by Damon, so she is far weaker than us. Not only her, but Alice and Jasper as well, says Joey, clearly worried about his mate. Alice and Jasper won't be taking part in this fight. Having them there and still having to protect them will only put us in danger. As for Bella, I'll bite her, says Damon, interrupting Max, as he appears coming down the stairs with Rosalie. As they appeared, the pack's eyes focused on Rosalie as their hair stood on end, and they immediately wanted to take a step back, all except Max. Max instead walked up to Rosalie and rubbed his head on her. This little action seemed to calm everyone as Rosalie smiled and rubbed Max's head. I'm glad you're still the same, Max, says Rosalie. It's impossible for them not to feel it the first time they see you like this. I'm sure it won't happen again, says Max. He's right. Right now you can't really feel it, but you're leaking small amounts of aura. Seeing that you're ever so close to being an original vampire, it's not weird for them to be on guard, especially seeing that they are werewolves. Says Damon. You are right, love. It seems they are already over it, says Rosalie while looking at the rest pack member that has relaxed. It seems we have another problem, says Damon, looking at Alice and Jasper. Rosalie and Max followed his eyes and saw Alice and Jasper looking at her with what seemed to be submission. What am I supposed to do with them watching me like that? Asked Rosalie.
Best we return upstairs until your transformation is finished and you can control your aura and newfound strength, says Damon.
Joey, bring Bella to the backyard later. She is too weak to participate in what's to come, so I'll fix that, says Damon as he and Rosalie return upstairs. Even though her transformation was almost finished, Rosalie didn't look any different on the outside, but on the inside it was a different matter completely. All her organs were working hundreds, if not thousands of times stronger than that of a normal human, and they worked much faster and more efficiently than humans. Currently, Rosalie couldn't be mistaken for a vampire at all. If anything, she was like a very advanced superhuman that needed to drink human blood. She was completely alive and even harder to kill than before. If she's that powerful now, how strong will she be after her transformation is finished? Asked Ocean. I haven't felt my instincts react in such a way since I was turned by Damon, says Kane. Max, why didn't you react the same as us? Asked Joey. As the first turned and the one Damon intended to be the strongest and closest to him in strength. Even though my instincts warned me, I wasn't the point that I felt I needed to run. Make no mistake, she is currently stronger than I am, but she still isn't anywhere near what I have felt from Damon, says Max. Another day passed, and finally Rosalie had stopped absorbing aura from Damon, and the pack was on even higher alert. Since earlier in the morning, Rosalie had already stopped absorbing aura, but nothing had happened since then, and the day was quickly approaching the end. But the pack wasn't letting their guard down, and was only getting tenser as time passed. Wasn't something supposed to happen, causing some big reaction or something? Asked Ocean. I guess so, but nothing has happened, and it is about to be an entire day since her transformation was supposed to be complete, says Kane. You both don't need to worry about it, Rosalie's transformation has already finished. I can sense the change. She has become so much stronger than a day ago, and she smells strong, says Max. So why aren't they coming down here yet? Asked Joey. It's probably best they don't. Remember how you guys reacted before? Asked Max. Yeah. Since Rosalie's transformation is complete, the original vampire should be aware, and the other vampires should have felt it as well. Now is not the time to drop our guard. I want you all to search the surrounding area to make sure there are not any enemies or unfamiliar vampires in the area. If they are, kill them. There isn't a need to ask questions. Now isn't the time to be nice, says Max. All right, we will head out now and report back any findings, says Kane. And remember, if there is an army approaching, fall back and regroup. No one is to engage the army of the original vampire alone, says Max. Yes. Whoosh. The pack sped out one after the other, leaving Max alone in the living room, while Damon and Rosalie were still upstairs. Things were happening. The completion of Rosalie's transformation had caused a stir in the supernatural world, and every vampire could feel the birth of a new original as some foolish one headed towards Forks, wanting to know how they too could become an original. Of course, there were also the smart ones, which consisted of the first-generation vampires turned by the first original. They who knew the horror and strength of an original vampire didn't bother going towards Forks, but instead stayed in place waiting for the order they were sure was coming from their master. But this was the best outcome for Damon's pack. The normal vampires posed no threat. Even if their number were large, they would be killed quicker than more arrived in Forks, being hunted down for the first time in their life since they became vampires. Unnamed castle. While the vampires were going crazy, because of the destruction of the Volturi and the emergence of another original vampire, in a very old and beautiful castle, the first original vampire was sitting on his throne. His eyes shined with madness and rage as he stared into space, but his gaze was so concentrated, it felt as though he was looking through the walls of the castle to a faraway place. The woman, a pregnant woman, at that thinks she can threaten my rule. He spoke in a deep, almost ancient voice. And the man, he isn't a vampire, a werewolf, and a powerful one at that. Together, it seems they think they can kill me. I'm perfect being with flawed thinking, but I will have to go myself. He has a pack the members can cause me no harm, but it would be best to summon the army, he says. But before that, there are some who would switch sides. It best I get rid of them now to save some effort later and to send a warning. Saying this, his right hand stretched out as it slowly became covered in aura. But unlike Damon's, it was blood red. Rumble! The whole castle began to shake as he held out his hand. I gave you the gift of immortal life, and I can take it away. He slowly clenched his fingers into a fist, and the red aura disappeared, and the shaking stopped abruptly. Besides a little shaking, nothing happened to the castle, and none of the vampires who lived in it died, but that wasn't the case for the rest of the world. First-generation vampires dropped dead in cities all over the world. It once again shocked the vampire who noticed, but the other first-generation vampires that wasn't dead got the message. After killing the vampires that had rebellious thoughts, the original vampire who was still owed his throne spoke. I, Ezekiel, the true original vampire, call my followers to assembly and charge with me to kill the fake one and her werewolf pack. I expect that you all will be gathered before me by the end of the day. If not, I will take that as a choice you made to support the imposter, and you will die, he said while still sitting on his throne. He may have said it in an empty room, but his voice echoed in the minds of the intended, whether they were on the other side of the planet or just miles away. They all heard the message and began to move frantically, heading towards his castle. While the original vampire had started to gather his army, Damon and Rosalie were still in their room in the house. They will be coming soon. Your job is to stay in the house and stay safe. You won't be participating in this fight, says Damon. But I know you are stronger than the others, but you are carrying our child, and even though you have become stronger, you can't control your power. You just have to trust that we will be all right. Says Damon, fine, but if I see in danger, I will come and help you. I don't care what you have to say about that. I won't watch you die while I could have helped you, says Rosalie. That the best I'm gonna get, isn't it? Asks Damon. It is. Oh, fine, I agree. Just stay safe, says Damon. Bam. Crack. The headless body dropped to the ground as it shattered into pieces. I'm getting really tired of this. Can't they all come together so I can just kill them all? This running back and forth is getting boring real quick, says Ocean, standing above the body. As Ocean takes a lighter out of his pocket and sets the pieces on fire, another person appears behind him. Ocean, all of the vampires in the immediate area are dead, and Max has returned. There's an army of vampires approaching quickly. We need to fall back and regroup, says Kane. Already? That's quicker than we thought it would be. Yeah, so let's go. We can't lead him into the town, so we are heading deeper into the forest. Damon and the others are already there. What about Rosalie? Asked Ocean. She is there also. Plans have changed. She still won't be fighting, but if we had left her in the house, they would have gone straight for her by going through the town. It would involve the humans, and we can't let that happen, says Kane. After they finished talking, the two sped off deeper into the forest, heading towards the rest of the pack as things were about to kick off in the most dangerous of fashions. With the speed of the two, it didn't take long for them to arrive at the meeting point far away from any humans. So where are the shapeshifters? I thought after the increasing number of vampires in Forks they would be here, says Crystal. I sent them away. They wouldn't provide any kind of help in this situation, and it isn't really their fight, says Damon. You're right, they would end up being only a distraction. As the group conversed, their enemies were getting closer and closer until one by one, vampires appeared coming out of the forest opposite them. The group immediately got into formation. Damon stood to the front, with the others forming another row behind him, and lastly, Rosalie stood behind everyone. On the other side, vampires kept pouring out of the forest, but they didn't attack. They stood looking at Rosalie, seemingly not seeing the others. But Damon and the others didn't say or do anything, but continued watching. 3 minutes passed, and finally, the vampires stopped pouring in. But they still didn't move to attack, nor did Damon and his pack. Damon's eyes were focused on the forest. He could feel and see the approaching original vampire.
Whoosh. When he finally appeared, he, unlike the other, looked directly at Damon and ignored Rosalie. He could feel the danger of Damon. Rosalie, on the other hand, was pregnant. She couldn't exert her full power.
Hand her over or die, he said, getting straight to the point. You really have no manners, do you? Not even a hello first before you start barking commands to your betters, says Damon. Inferior creature, you haven't the faintest idea of the trouble you've found yourself in. But since it's clear you won't listen, then the only other solution is your death. I have come to the same conclusion about you, says Damon. And with that, a peaceful resolution was off the table for good, not that it was ever an option to begin with. They both looked at the other, rage and bloodlust pouring out of their very beings. As their auras started rushing out in full force, they both had no intention of holding back. They wanted the other's death more than anything. Boom! Blood red and dark blue aura took almost completely physical form because of the terrifying amount of aura being released by the two. As it collided, the ground shook and trees fell as the sky darkened. Boom! Damon disappeared from his spot. No one present could track his movement as he appeared before Ezekiel and grabbed his face and disappeared, leaving the area. The vampires and the members of the pack didn't wait any longer as they rushed at each other with Joey, staying at Rosalie's side by the end of the day. One side would be completely wiped out. Damon and Ezekiel. Boom! Damon and Ezekiel appeared in another area as Damon flung him to the ground, creating a crater as dust covered it, but Ezekiel wasn't the original vampire for nothing. He immediately appeared, rushing at Damon. Paralyzed, Ezekiel mumbled as some of his aura split from him and stuck on Damon. As Damon was about to dodge the attack, he found himself unable to move, quickly increasing his output of aura to free himself, but it was too late. Boom! Ezekiel's fist connected with Damon's face, throwing him backward with so much force, his body flipped 3 times before he could stabilize himself. Damon, upon landing, dug his feet into the ground to stop and quickly looked at the approaching enemy, quickly bringing his hands up to his face. Bam! Just in time, Damon blocked the latest attack and quickly shifted to the side, catching Ezekiel in an awkward position. Damon delivered a punch to the side of his face, blasting him out with so much force, the shockwave flattened the area. Damon didn't let up as he dashed off, following him soon, catching up Damon, jumped above him, and drops down a full-force kick in Ezekiel's chest, slamming him to the ground. Boom! The ground collapsed inward due to the force, as Ezekiel burrows downwards and the ground collapses on him. Damon drops to the ground as he looks on, knowing it wasn't near enough to kill his enemy. Rumble! Boom! The ground under Damon's feet started shaking violently, then blasted open. Bam! 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 Huge pieces of rock flew out towards Damon. As he destroyed them one after the other, instead of dodging, he kept his eyes on the huge hole formed. Whoosh! And as expected, Ezekiel jumps out with his clothing covered in dirt, but unhurt. The warm-up is over, says Damon as his aura increases once again. I agree, the warm-up is over. Ezekiel says, his voice full of murderous intentions. Boom! Boom! The ground under him cracked and collapsed under the sudden increase in his aura output, as the amount soon reached the level of Damon's and soon surpasses it. Blood pause. Damon suddenly felt his blood flow stop and his body was unable to move, but Ezekiel didn't give him a moment to think. Boom! A fist connected to Damon's face as he was flung back and slammed into the ground. The force sent him sliding across the ground. Quickly trying to stand, Damon found he still couldn't move his body. But with another quick movement, Ezekiel appeared before him again and took advantage of the fact he still couldn't move. And with one smooth motion, his hand went straight through Damon's stomach. Cough. Damon spat out some blood as he looked at Ezekiel. Damon didn't even look down at the hand running through his body, as he quickly grabbed Ezekiel's hand and tightened the grip. You really are stronger than I thought you would be, but it doesn't matter. You will die, just the same, says Damon. As Damon's grip on Ezekiel's hand increased, his body began to change, and with it, the amount of aura he was letting off increased. Damon became taller, ripping through his shirt. His hair became longer. He also grew fangs and claws as fur covered his body. He looked like a bipedal wolf as he loomed over Ezekiel. Growl! His restrained growl echoed and cracked the ground as Ezekiel's ears bleed. Damon, being far more ruthless in this form, was quickly shown as quickly took a step back. As Ezekiel's hand came out of his stomach, Damon still didn't let go of the hand he was holding as he yanked on it hard, pulling Ezekiel forward, and delivered an astonishing blow with his other arm, slamming Ezekiel into the ground as dust covered everything. Boom! Growl! A low growl echoed, clearing the smoke and revealing the very surprising scene present. The transformed Damon stood at the edge of a huge pit, still holding on to Ezekiel's arm. The only difference was that Ezekiel was no longer attached to said hand as blood dripped onto the floor, blood-bind. The arm Damon was holding was quickly thrown away, and as it burst open, ropes formed from its blood quickly surround Damon. But Damon wasn't slow to respond as he slashed the approaching ropes one after the other, destroying them all. As Damon destroyed the remaining blood rope, Ezekiel appeared finally out of the pit as his hand had regrown and grown razor-like claws. He used to swipe towards Damon's chest, but Damon's senses were too sharp to be caught, be surprised, but knowing the attack was coming, he didn't love, and the claw collided with his furry chest. Bam! As they collided, Ezekiel's claws bounced back, unable to even scratch the skin of Damon as he responded, thunderously slamming his fist straight through Ezekiel's body. Boom! The force behind the attack was so powerful that it created a shockwave. Ezekiel, knowing impaled by Damon, had no time to focus on his injury as Damon grabbed his head with his other hand. His nails dug into the sides of Ezekiel's head as venom pumped into his body, and for the first time since the fight began, Ezekiel let out a pain-filled scream. H. Hearing the scream, Damon's nails dug deeper into his head as he continued to push his venom into his system. Perhaps knowing what was happening, Ezekiel's actions became erratic as his free hands attacked Damon with full force. Blow after full power blow landed heavily onto Damon's face, creating heavy gusts of wind with each attack. And even with his durability, Damon's face was bleeding heavily, but he didn't let go as venom pumped into Ezekiel's system. The hole in his stomach was bleeding more and more. "It seems you are not healing very well, are you?" asked Damon in a deep voice. Ezekiel, ensuring the pain didn't bother answering Damon as he continued his assault on Damon's face. But if one looked closely, it was clear to see that the attacks were becoming weaker and weaker as time passed, and as his system filled with venom. Feeling the strength leaving his body as time passes, Ezekiel continues to try his best to continue his assault on Damon to escape from his hold. "As much as I would love to torture you to death, my family is fighting right now. Obviously, their life is more important than my current enjoyment." Any last words? Damon asked, enduring the pitiful attacks hitting his face. Currently, Damon's previous wounds had already healed, and Ezekiel no longer had the strength to injure him. Now his attack strength was less than a love tap. Hearing Damon's question, Ezekiel's face became grim. As his attack stopped, he looked at Damon with an expression filled with anger and rage, but there wasn't a hint of sadness or regret. "Ha ha ha, I would never be killed by something imperfect. As the only perfect being in this world, I will be killed by another. All that's happened today is that I have decided that I have lived long enough. Only I can kill myself. You will never have the pleasure. And when I die, you will follow. And so will your ridiculous pack," says Ezekiel. As he said that, Damon felt his instincts scream at him, but sadly, as he was about to act on it, blood paused. Ezekiel's voice sounded and Damon felt his body freeze. Knowing how to break free, he quickly tried to mobilize his aura. "It's too late, ha 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 ha. I'll see you in hell," Ezekiel shouted. Damon quickly got control of his body, and as he was about to throw Ezekiel's body away, boom! A gigantic explosion erupted, engulfing everything in sight. As Ezekiel had said, it really was too late. The shock wave of the explosion spread out, affecting the surrounding area for miles. As the effect affected the battle going on between Damon's pack and the vampires, the explosion was terrifyingly powerful. The shock waves spread, causing the ground where the remaining battle was happening to shake violently. And with the enhanced senses of the creatures present, the sound of the explosion managed to burst their eardrums, shocking them and causing the fighting to pause. But as the fighting paused, because of the shock caused by the explosion, the vampires present all felt it. The feeling of being entirely free for the first time since they returned, and they all knew what it meant. The feeling they had when the original vampire was still alive was as if they were being suppressed and watched at every turn. One wrong move, and their lives would be over. But now that feeling was gone, their instincts screamed. They were free, and slowly smiles appeared on the faces of the vampires present, as they soaked in the feeling of being unrestricted. But it seemed as if in their excitement they had forgotten there was another original vampire in the world, currently. While they indulged in the fact they were free, a spontaneous action appeared in Rosalie's mind, and she could feel a new connection forming between her and many people. The connection was nothing like the one she had with Damon that allowed her to know his feeling and made them one. The new connection felt like she had gained control over those on the other end. And while the connection formed, the vampires that were relishing in the feeling of being free felt that feeling disappearing quickly as the old feeling of being suppressed returned, slowly becoming stronger as time passed. This had managed to shock them out of their joy as their eyes focused on Rosie, knowing she was the cause of this, all of them not being unwilling to be under the control of another again, charged forward with new rage. The pack had already fallen back to Rosalie's position when the fighting had stopped, but seeing the approaching wave attacking fearlessly, they no longer held back one after the other. They all transformed into their humanoid wolf form. The pack rushed forward, aiming to intercept the vampires at a good distance away from Rosalie, so she would have time to run if needed. The pack, which had managed to remain relatively uninjured in the first wave of fighting, was now getting injured as they were surrounded and still had to stop vampires from approaching Rosalie. No one vampire could cause serious damage to the pack members, but as more injuries appeared before the one before healed, the injuries added up, but still, the pack fought on killing vampires by tens, and the number of enemies dropped quickly. But as the injuries added on, there was bound to be a mistake, as one vampire managed to pass the pack members, all of who were occupied, not paying attention to anything else. The vampire ran quickly towards Rosalie, who was still immersed in the feeling of the many bounds forming and being destroyed. As the pack killed more vampires, the vampire quickly reached Rosalie, and as he was about to run her through the chest with his hand, his body froze. And as Rosalie's eyes focused on him, his body collapsed into itself, becoming what appeared to be a small red floating ball. With the vampire's body crushed, Rosalie dropped it to the ground as she felt the connection disappear, meaning he was dead. Seeing the fighting going on in the distance, Rosalie's eyes turned cold as she reached out her hand and clenched her fist, seemingly at nothing. But in response, one after the other, the vampires fighting dropped one after the other, dead as the pack member turned and looked at Rosalie, finally having a chance for the injuries they have to heal. Seeing this, Rosalie finally smiled. Everything was done. Maybe if they didn't injure her family, some would have lived, but since they all had to die. I'm sorry you had to do this, it seems. I took too long, a voice sounded behind Rosalie as her smile became brighter. It doesn't matter as long as everyone is safe, I'm happy, Rosalie said as she turned and faced Damon, who had returned, his chest covered in blood as he looked embarrassed. Seems you were careless, Rosalie says. Yeah, who would have thought he would explode, says Damon. Time skip. Years had passed since the war between the vampires and the pack, and things have been peaceful ever since. The pack had left Forks 4 years ago to live in Europe peacefully as Joy, the daughter of Damon and Rosalie, grew up. Their daughter was born and grew at the normal speed for a human child, but she was anything but normal. She had all the powers of Damon and was an original vampire, and she was loved by everyone in the pack, especially Ocean, who had managed to pass on his pranks and joke to her. 14 years since the war, and even though there were no longer any enemies to fight, the pack members were always lively and things were always fun. Just spending their time together, everyone was sure they would enjoy this time for eternity. As long as they stuck together, and as time passed, the pack was sure to expand with new children being added from the other members, so things would never become boring.